Councilmember Mwanatua.
Here.
Councilmember Whalen.
Here.
Mayor Bessinger.
Here. And now we come to the public comments portion of the meeting. Is any member of the public present in chambers want to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have anybody via WebEx?
None.
Mr. Clerk, do we have some public comments that were given to us in writing that wanted to be read into the record?
We do not, but there are some public comments in front of you, which you'll see.
I've read those. I will close public comments, and we will come back to the meeting in regards to ordinances and resolutions. With respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive the reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. The consent calendar, these are items that are routine in nature, are placed on the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item, unless a council member requests individual consideration. Council members' vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption of the consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. For adoption of ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent calendar items. The clerk has requested to remove item number 4, and will be continued to a date to be determined later. In regards to the other items, do we have any member of the council wish to pull a consent calendar item? Any member of the public wish to pull a consent calendar item? Seeing none, I will come back for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number 5.
4? 4? No, 4.
I'm at 4.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
And we don't need to do a roll call
right,
vote because we have 5 members present.
Very good. Okay, in regards to public hearings, a public hearing is an open consideration within a regular or special meeting of the Clovis City Council for which a special notice has been given and may be required. When a public hearing is continued, noticing an adjourned item is required as per Government Code 54955.1. We have item 11. We have 2 public hearings. Item 11 is consider actions related to the annexation of territory, annexation number 60, Solvita Commons, Northeast Corner, Willow, and Alluvial, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services. Item A is consider approval of a resolution annexing territory, annexation number 60, Solvita Commons, Northeast Corner, Willow, and Alluvial, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services, and calling a special landowner election to annex the territory, annexation number 60, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services. Item B is consider approval of a resolution of the City of Clovis declaring the results of a special landowner election and directing recording of the notice of special tax lien for the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, 2004-1, Police and Fire Services. I will open the proceedings. This is the time and place for the public hearing in this council's proceedings for Community Facilities District number 2004-1. This hearing is to acquire annexation number 60 into the district and to levy special taxes in annexation number 60. Before I formally open the hearings, is there anyone who wishes to file a written protest? If so, they must be given to the city clerk now. Seeing none, this hearing is now open. We will first have presentations by staff about annexation number 60. After that, we will receive comments and questions and any oral protests from any interested person. When all comments have been received, the hearing will be closed.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. On May 4th, 2020, the Council heard a request by the affected property owners to include territory at the northeast corner of Willow and Alluvial, as indicated in the detailed map, and identified as CFD Annexation Number 60 to City CFD 2004-1. Tonight's actions will finalize the annexation process by holding a public hearing and property owner election.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions or protests from the audience? Do we have anybody via the web?
No.
And Mr. Clerk, there is nothing filed in writing? Okay, that'd be enough. We may now consider and adopt the resolution annexing territory to the Community Facilities District, which will annex territory described in the boundary map to the district and call a special property owner election, which will call for the property owner vote to approve the special tax and appropriation limits.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Do we vote on this, or we just do
You're fine.
okay. Good. Will the clerk please announce the results of the property owner vote?
Mr. Mayor, we have one ballot representing 4 votes, all unanimous, indicating a passage of the CFD.
Thank you. The record shows that the property owner votes are unanimous and in favor of the levy of the special taxes and establishment of the appropriation limits. We may now proceed with the final actions for the district.
I'll make a motion that we declare the results of the special landowner election and direct the recording of the notice of special tax lien for CFD number 2004-1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes.
Mayor, point of
Yes.
procedure. Sean, where did you go? So confused. What? They don't let you stay in here either? Oh. We didn't vote on the first action?
You did. You had 2 votes.
We had a motion and a second.
We had a motion and a second.
But we didn't have a vote.
I'm sorry.
For the resolution.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
we can
do
revote that.
how do we repair that, Mr.
We have a,
City Attorney?
Take a vote on the first resolution,
Okay.
and reconfirm the second resolution.
Very good.
With the second, do you need a separate motion to reconfirm the second?
I would,
motion?
just to be safe, because the sequence is you have to do the first resolution
Right.
first.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second for the first action, so,
Okay.
And I have second the first
Right.
motion.
We had a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thanks for cleaning it up for me, Lynn.
and I'll make a motion to reconfirm the, the motion to approve the resolution declaring the results of the election.
And I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
sorry about
Motion passes. Item 12. Item 12, consider actions related to annexation of territory, annexation number 62, T6239, northeast corner of Locan and Loyola, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services. A is consider approval of a resolution annexing territory, annexation number 62, T6239, northeast corner of Locan and Loyola, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services, and calling a special landowner election to annex territory, annexation 62, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District, 2004-1, Police and Fire Services. And B, consider approval of a resolution of the City of Clovis declaring the results of a special landowner election and directing recording of the notice of special tax lien for the City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2004-1, Police and Fire Services. And this is the time and place for the public hearing in this council's proceedings for the Community Facilities District number 2004-1. The hearing is to acquire annexation number 62 into the district and levy special taxes in annexation number 62. Before I formally open the hearings, is there anyone who wishes to file a written protest? If so, they must be filed with the city clerk now. Seeing none, this hearing is now open. We will have first presentations by staff about annexation number 62. After that, we will receive comments and questions and any oral protests from any interested persons. When all comments have been received, the hearing will be closed. Staff?
On May 4th, 2020, the council heard a request by the affected property owners to include territory at the northeast corner of Locan and Loyola as indicated in the detailed map and identified as CFD annexation number 62 to City CFD 2004-1. Tonight's actions will finalize the annexation process by holding a public hearing and property owner election.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions, or protests from the audience present at council chambers? Seeing none, are there any via the web?
No.
Thank you. We may now consider the adoption of resolution annexing territory annexation 62 to the Community Facilities District 2004-1, which will annex territory described in the boundary map to the district and call a special property owner election, which will call for the property owner vote to approve the special tax and appropriations limit for annexation number 62.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Will the clerk please read the result of the property owner vote?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in receipt of one ballot representing 11 votes unanimously supporting the annexation.
Thank you. The record shows that the property owner votes are unanimous and in favor of the levy of a special taxes and the establishment of appropriations limit. We may now proceed with the final actions for the district.
I'll move the resolution declaring the results of the special landowner election and directing the recording of the notice of special tax lien for CFD number 2004-1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 13, consider items associated with approximately 38.50 acres of land located at the northwest corner of Shepherd and North Clovis Avenues. 6050 Enterprises LP owner applicant, Harbor and Associates representative. First item is consider approval of a request to approve the environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for pre-zone 2016-10 and vesting tentative tract map PM 6050. B, consider introduction of an ordinance R 2016-10, a request to pre-zone from the county AE exclusive agricultural 20 zone to Clovis R1 PRD planned residential development zone district. And C, consider approval of a resolution TM 6050, a request to approve a vesting tentative tract map for a 255 lot single family planned residential development. George Gonzalez is our presenter. George.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Staff would like to begin this evening by providing a brief description as to the Heritage Grove Design Guidelines. Back in December of 2016, the City Council approved the Heritage Grove Design Guidelines for this area. This area is also referred to as the Northwest Urban Center Growth Area in the General Plan Land Use Diagram. The design guidelines memorialized specific development standards, circulation plan, thematic street sections, landscape framework, and plant palette for this area. The intent is to build upon the distinctive culture and agricultural richness of this area. The guidelines established two main objectives here, and one is the overall theme for the area. Two is the design elements, such as the architecture and landscape. This will help identify an authentic sense of place for the approximately 30,000 citizens that will call this area their home. About a year prior to the adoption of the design guidelines, the City Council officially adopted the name Heritage Grove and associated logo for the 4 square mile area. And now just to provide a brief geography of this area. The Heritage Grove encompasses approximately 26 acres of land that is generally bounded by Copper Avenue to the north, Shepherd Avenue to the south, Willow Avenue to the west, and Sunnyside Avenue to the east. The first project that was approved by the council for this area is Tract 6200 by Lennar Homes. This project will bring in approximately 586 homes to this area. The project here this evening for the council's consideration is identified in red on the screen, which if approved by the council, it will bring an additional 255 lots to the Heritage Grove area. The applicant this evening is not proposing a general plan amendment. The project density is consistent with the medium density residential, which allows between 4.1 to 7 dwelling units per acre in the general plan land use destination, which applies to this property. The proposed density is coming in at 6.94 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is requesting for your consideration tonight 2 specific entitlements. The first one being pre-zone 16-10. The applicant is requesting to pre-zone approximately 38.5 acres, which is the entire project site, from the county AE20 to the Clovis R1 PRD zone district. And again, this proposed pre-zoning applies to the entire property. The second entitlement the applicant is requesting your approval tonight is vesting tentative tract map 6050. This is a 255 lot gated single family planned residential development with private streets meeting our city's standard for street width at a density of 6.94 dwelling units per acre. The project is accessible from one main entry along Clovis Avenue, identified in red on the screen. Also 2 entries along DeWitt Avenue, located on the west side of the project, identified in red on the screen as well. The project will also bring or propose a fire apparatus access road on the east side of the project, identified in blue on the screen, which will also allow the residents within the small lot portion of the project to exit onto Clovis Avenue. And I will talk a little bit more about this fire apparatus access road further down the presentation. The proposed setbacks for the large lot product of this project include 20 feet to the garage, 10 to living area, 5 foot on the garage side, and 4 foot on the opposite side, and 10 foot rear yard setbacks. The setbacks proposed for the small lot product include 5 foot to the garage, 4 to living, 5 on the garage side, and 3 on the opposite, and 4 on the rear setback. During the Planning Commission meeting, there was significant discussion in terms of sidewalks that were brought up. In fact, a couple of the Planning Commissioners expressed concerns as to this project not having sidewalks within their development. And then there was further discussion as to where exactly are sidewalks if you are proposing them within this project. So here's just, I would like to point out that in the area in purple, of course, the project will provide standard sidewalks along Shepherd, Clovis, and DeWitt Avenues, again, identified in purple. Within the small lot product, there will be a interior sidewalk looping the adjacent to the parking stalls. They're identified in blue. But it is important to note that overall, the project will not include sidewalks in front of the single-family residential lots identified in red on the screen.
George, does that have a rolled curb or a regular curb?
That's a good question. I will look at the applicant to tell me if it's
okay, thank you.
Curb. Yes, thank you. And here I would like to briefly speak a little bit about the fire apparatus access road I previously mentioned. The project, as indicated, includes an exit-only gate along the north Clovis Avenue street frontage for residents and will also be utilized as a fire apparatus access road for the fire department. The Planning Commission added a condition requiring that this access be, quote, addressed to make for a safer entry and exit. The Engineering Division has reviewed the site configuration along with the project's traffic study and determined that the access points as proposed are sufficient for safe operation. In addition, the applicant's own project engineer has determined also that the access points for the proposed represent a safe overall entry and exit configuration for the site. Based on this review, staff has concluded that modifications to the driveway configuration are unnecessary to address safety concerns. However, if this evening the council wished to make a modification, the planned exit-only driveway on Clovis Avenue could be relocated and converted to a right-in, right-out driveway. However, that adjustment would trigger the need for a significant redesign of the project layout to accommodate the gates and turnaround area, which would also be required. A reduction in the lot yield in the subdivision is likely. The addition of northbound left turn lane from Clovis Avenue into the project site is not recommended due to the curve of the Clovis Avenue alignment and the lack of adequate space to accommodate the vehicle queuing entering the subdivision. And as part of the project review, when it's submitted to the planning division, we are required to analyze the project for environmental impacts through what's referred to as the initial study, which with this project, staff proposed a mitigating negative declaration which lists specific mitigation measures associated with the project. One of them was in the agricultural section of the initial study. And according to the 2016 Farmland Monitoring and Mapping Program from the California Department of Conservation, the project area this evening is considered prime farmland, farmland of statewide importance, unique farmland, and rural residential land. The potential impacts associated with the conversion of farmlands were evaluated in conjunction with the 2014 General Plan EIR. As a mitigation measure, the applicant was required to prepare an agricultural resource evaluation prior to the project approval. The applicant submitted the agricultural resource evaluation on May 14th of this year to the Director of Planning and Development Services. The resource evaluation identified three key components here: the impact of the loss of agricultural land, the economic viability of future agricultural use of the property, and finally, the efficiency measures to prevent the premature conversion of farmland. The director evaluated the findings outlined in the applicant's May 14th letter in accordance with the agricultural resources mitigation measures identified in the EIR. Subject to the summary of environmental impacts, mitigation measures, and level of significance after mitigation of the Clovis General Plan EIR, the Director of Planning and Development Services finds that future agricultural use of the subject property is not economically viable. Further mitigation is not required. This determination was completed by the Director on May 28th of this year. In conclusion, the Planning Commission and staff recommend that the City Council this evening approve an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for pre-zone 1610 and vesting tentative tract map 6050. Also approve pre-zone 1610, and finally approve vesting tentative tract map 6050, subject to the conditions of approval listed as Exhibit A. Attachment 2, apologize. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, George. Any questions for staff? Lynn?
George, could you go back to the Planning Commission's discussion and their, not the sidewalk part, but the relocation of access along Clovis Avenue? Can you just say that out loud again?
Sure. This is the the discussion, but would you like me to go back to the map, perhaps?
If you could just show the map, and then if you just can describe this again, I'm not tracking exactly what they were.
Okay. One of the concerns that the commission had, if you can see the mouse right here, was that for this, oh, perfect. Thank you.
I gotta go this way now. Oh, is it on both? Oh, nice.
So right here, the commission had a genuine concern that the smaller lot product section of this development will have all vehicles entering on DeWitt Avenue. Even though that the vehicles could exit off of to DeWitt and out to Clovis Avenue, the commission thought that it would be more appropriate and also to mitigate traffic impacts in the future by providing a entry and exit driveway along Clovis Avenue. The concern with that was, as staff indicated, that was an initial proposal at the beginning, and the fire department had concerns with making a turn into this development if you allowed, if you move the drive aisle further north. Initially, the fire apparatus access road was right here next to this private open space. So after listening to the concerns of the fire department, it was moved further down right here so they can have direct access, straight access to the rest of the development. But at the conclusion of the vote of the Planning Commission, they added a condition for the applicant to continue to work with staff to modify this exit-only driveway to allow entry as well.
So that's really the only modification, not the location of the driveway?
And move it, probably move it further north. So move it probably like right next to the park perhaps.
Which was the original location that the fire department then said was not their preference?
Right, it was not their preference.
Okay. And then can I ask another question? The outlots that are shown there, those are parking, yeah?
You're correct.
And then the pool, down by the pool, that's also just sort of general parking for guests?
Correct. All these stalls along the perimeter here, they're all guest parking.
Okay, thanks.
Jose. So George, am I understanding right? So the commission would like the developer to incorporate a regular in and out driveway for that, a secondary one?
Correct.
But what staff wanted was just one for fire apparatus.
Correct. And an exit only. So,
Just exit only for the residents.
right, correct.
And what is staff's current recommendation?
The current proposed map, which is an exit only.
And fire apparatus.
Right.
Okay, and then let's go with the sidewalks. So that's blue, royal blue, is that royal blue?
Yes.
Okay, that's sidewalks within the interior of that smaller homes, right?
Correct.
And there was an issue regarding that also in the Planning Commission.
There were concerns of just overall the project not having sidewalks in front of the homes. And the reason why staff felt comfortable supporting the applicant's proposed project here without sidewalks in majority of the project is, one, primarily because it's gated. So as a gated community, it prevents outside through traffic from entering through the subdivision here. So it is assumed and expected that the neighbors within this development will share the road with the pedestrians.
So it's an HOA gated community.
Correct.
And generally, what's our policy on that? The council's policy.
The council has in the past approved projects similar to this one as well.
So is there confusion about that?
I think not about the council's prior approval, it's just the project not having sidewalks for the pedestrians.
So is there confusion as far as our direction,
I personally, I believe that staff would have a concern if these were public, open streets.
But as it involves gated communities like this?
Right. No, no, we wouldn't have an issue with that, since it's gated.
So there's clarity.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I think, if I may add, it further amplifies that by this project being gated, it also prevents, here on the west side of the project, it's planned for mixed-use development once this area gets annexed, and it's going to be commercial. So it prevents also the folks from this commercial center from traversing through this residential area. It will push them out to the Wood Avenue and out to Shepherd, or it will push them out to Minnewawa, down to Shepherd, and to other areas of town.
Bob? With regards to that smaller home development on the bottom, does fire and our garbage trucks go in and then back out on each of those individual, or are there bigger bins? Can you explain?
No, that's a good question. They won't be backing out down each drive aisle. It's a little bit hard to see, but just right here where I have my cursor, there's a trash enclosure here. And then you see another one right there, and then further here, and then further here. So the property owners within the smaller lot product,
They'll share.
right?
Okay.
They will need to take their trash to those trash enclosures, and then the garbage trucks will go there and directly pick them up. So there's no worry about them, backing up, having to back up in all of those drive aisles.
And then with fire, should they have to, would they go in if they have to do a service call? Would they just stay in sort of that loop area so that way they can get out quicker and easier? Do you know that?
That's a good question. I do not, the fire chief is not here to ask him that question. Okay. I do not know.
But they didn't, fire did not express any concerns with regards to how they will circulate within that smaller portion?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, if they can kind of give us some assurances on that, I would appreciate that. Okay, with the right-in, right-out with the Planning Commission, we would still keep the one on DeWitt, just add the one also on Clovis Avenue, is the recommendation of the Planning Commission?
The right-in, right-out is...
It'll be in addition to what's already on the west side.
Right.
Okay.
But that's more of staff's recommendation, if that's what the council wants to go. The commission wanted not only a right-in, right-out, but also a...
Turn lane from north.
Left turn, yeah, from North Clovis Avenue, which it provides problems due to the curvature of the road and the proximity to the intersection of Shepherd and Clovis.
Okay. And then that curvature on the north, the bigger lots, staff didn't see an issue with that?
No.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So because of the curve up there, but the north has two ins and outs, correct?
Correct. You have the primary one right here, and then the second one right there. Okay. And they're both in and out.
Okay. And then is this satisfies all the sort of the new Sigma regulations, and we obtaining any FID, right? Is it still an FID, or is it in the, I forgot the other?
FID.
FID.
Okay, so it satisfies all the water requirements for this area?
Correct.
Okay. And is it two separate HOAs for the top and the southern one, or is it just one HOA?
Two separate HOAs.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Luke, did you have some input?
Yeah, I believe we have the fire chief on the phone or on WebEx. If we want to unmute him, he can answer Councilman Montour's question.
Chief.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Perfect. So to Councilman Montour's question, we will stay on the outer rim, and then we'd pull hose lines in, and that's how we fight fire. The reason why we asked the line to be moved down, or the entrance, the one-way entrance or exit and our entrance in, was if you see that narrow road, we'd have to come in, make that turn, and come back around. We want to be in that outer loop like it's proposed currently.
Could he repeat the syllables he just didn't say? And we can put them together.
Chief, I don't know if you are too close to your phone. Could you say that again, please?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Well, we'll see.
All right, we're fine with the outer rim perimeter. That's where we'd stay.
That's where we'll stay.
Okay,
And then
thank you.
we would, and the gate is fine from its current location.
The gate is fine at its current location, was his last statement. And based on what I could interpret, they would stay on the private streets and not be going into the individual drives between the buildings. They would fight fire from the main street.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, so planned residential developments, and this is kind of going to Jose's point about clarity. I guess when it comes to planned residential developments, the only clarity I seem to get from them is that there is an opportunity for some creativity within them because they are designed to provide some amenities to the city of Clovis. Can you describe for me what you view the amenities to be for this particular project?
Sure. The applicant is providing two different types of amenities. I'll first go over the private amenities that will be a benefit to the residents within this project. And that is, they will have their own private open space. And also, they will have a pool and recreational area to be utilized by the folks here. In terms of a public amenity that will be used by the community, or can be seen as a public amenity. One is they're providing additional landscaping along the Wood Avenue here, I believe another 10 feet of landscaping. And they are also providing a shade structure over an existing park in the Herndon Shepherd specific plan area, which, as indicated in the staff report, it's a substantial contribution as they can exceed up to or over $40,000 to place one of those. So that would be the public amenity.
And then related to the community gateway, my view is that Clovis Avenue will continue to be a relatively high trafficked avenue as it heads into I'll call it the village area of Heritage Grove. The thematic element that we see that has been adopted from some of the design guidelines in the Heritage Grove plan, is that, can we expect it to look like what we have envisioned before us in the staff report? Where it says, it's on page 143 of the document that I have. It's figure 4 of this agenda item. And basically it's a monument sign facing Shepherd as you're coming into Clovis Avenue, and it says Heritage Grove with the Heritage Grove symbol on it.
Figure 4?
Yes, figure 4.
Yes, that is correct, specific to Clovis Avenue. So staff will ensure that the applicant meets the design guidelines requirements for the streetscape.
Can we expect that there will be some symmetry in that on the eastern side of Clovis Avenue, as you're on Clovis Avenue going through Shepherd, that you'll see a similar type of monument sign?
Yes.
I guess it's the Lennar development.
Right. So what staff will do is we'll pull the approved plans for Lennar, and specifically to their gateway feature at the northeast corner of this intersection, and we will ensure that the applicant matches what Lennar is doing as well. So you have a cohesive design moving forward on Clovis Avenue.
Okay. And then when it comes to my takeaway from reading the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting, where when it came to the entry and exit points, there was a view apparently by a significant majority, if not all of the Planning Commission, that DeWitt Avenue was going to be a bit of a busier street than Clovis Avenue. And I was a little bit surprised by that, but I think that their view was that on the west side of DeWitt, because there's going to be a kind of a commercial retail center there, that's going to be more highly trafficked than Clovis Avenue, or more complicated to maneuver around. Is that what I wasn't at the meeting. I'm just
similar to that, yes.
Okay. Is there some value to that argument on their behalf, or is it misplaced?
No, I think there's some value to that. I mean, there's no denying that I think that the commercial project, when it's there, it will provide additional traffic onto DeWitt Avenue. And that was part of the analysis that our engineers went back and looked at, along with the project applicant's engineer, and just to see if there is truly a concern here, and if it is, let's further look at it. And it was evaluated and determined that there wasn't a concern to modify this configuration.
Do we have an application in yet for the western side of DeWitt Avenue for that mixed use or that commercial retail spot?
We don't, but we did meet with the applicant earlier this week.
The applicant of the mixed use residential?
Apologize, the property owner, yes.
Okay.
Of the mixed use component here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if he's here this evening. I thought I saw him. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which I hope he left the meeting, with a positive feeling as to the future outlook of the commercial component of it, but no submitted entitlements at this time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Just so I'm clear on it, the lower half, I guess it's elevations, the Clovis Avenue exit, that's exit only when this builds out, when Heritage Grove builds out, and I want to drive, let's say, to Clovis North or to Community College. I come down, I go down Shepherd, I go Shepherd to Willow, I go there. On my way back, coming south on Clovis Avenue, when it finally opens up, I'm not going to be able to turn right into that complex, or I can?
Not currently, not with this proposal, you cannot.
Okay. So I would have to go all the way around, come back in through DeWitt?
Correct.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, doing it as a right turn only in and out, that causes this whole thing to get upside down?
It will cause the applicant to go back and redesign it, and they may have to lose some lots to do that, and to provide for the additional right-of-way.
Because you're making it 2 lanes instead of 1?
Correct. They have to pull, a pocket,
Okay.
to enter the project area.
Okay. And I read the applicant, I had a discussion with the applicant on Friday. They sent me their traffic study, and it mentioned in there that Beheimer and Minnewawa at some point is going to be impacted, and there's going to need to be a different change in the maybe a turn lane of some type or something. This won't affect that because we're not punching Clovis all the way up there. So this particular development plus the one across the street isn't going to cause significant traffic problems in the opinion of staff?
Correct. Now, you brought up a good point there. The traffic study under the cumulative 2040 scenarios, it did identify the Beheimer and Minnewawa areas as being impacted. Therefore, they provided specific mitigations to help with that. And one thing that's important to note is even today, the area of Beheimer and Minnewawa, it's already significantly impacted, and it's out in the county. So if it's something that the county would like to address now, it would be under their jurisdiction. What we're doing is we're looking at just proportionate impacts with this project, and as a mitigation measure and also as a condition of approval, the applicant will, in addition to improving Shepherd Avenue along the frontage and Clovis, they will pay their proportionate share towards impacts to Beheimer and Minnewawa and other street segments where eventually when those areas are annexed into the city, we'll have the funding to improve them.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Bach?
I just wanted to make a comment with regards to, better watch what I say. It was 768 pages of air quality stuff that was in this environmental report that for decision makers, you look at it, you kind of go, how are these, how, and then when you look at the mitigated negative deck, it was very simple. It said there were, you know, not major, and it just makes for such, if we had to print everything out, such a thick waste of paperwork, but I'm sure it's required. I just wanted to just say, if there was something, please let us know if we had concerns, but it just seems like it was just so much that it seemed like for a decision maker, you don't even know what to look for. You don't even know how it applies. But at least the traffic study, it was written in a way was simpler, where you can understand the intersections, how many of turns they're expecting. And so, but maybe I am just ranting with regards to the requirements made. And it's not that complicated a project. And I remember when I first got on with Planning Commission, it wasn't this complex. But,
and I apologize if, you know.
No apology. I'm pretty sure it was a state requirement that is making the applicant have to make these studies.
The intent of providing these studies to you now, that's why the staff reports went from maybe a couple hundred pages to almost 1,000. It was just in an effort to provide you with all the information so you can make an informed decision. Yeah. They were there to, but we can definitely go back and just look at our procedures and see if we can do something to perhaps provide the initial studies electronically to you instead of providing it part of the packet. As you can see, this is the whole staff report here, so it's a lot of information, so I understand.
No other questions for staff. I'll open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Dirk Pushall, and my business address is 923 Van Ness in Fresno, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Project, as you understand, are two separate projects. The southern project is an elevation project that you've seen many times, that Wilson Homes brought initially through Harlan Ranch. And as we told the Planning Commission, we take pride in trying to make changes to improve the product as much as we can. And in this particular case, we do provide a sidewalk network. If you look at the design, the little red tangents, they're actually shorter tangents than you typically see in the elevations product. And we also are adding about 121 free parking spaces, because parking has been a concern, not only from our perspective as developers, but also from the marketplace. So we try to address these things as we can. And then to the north is the Chadwick product. Very proud of that. It's more of a move-up product. Been very successful here in the Clovis area. With respect to the environmental studies, I'll take the greenhouse gas study first. These studies are mandated by the state of California, and staff has to follow, and our consultants have to follow a protocol. They're difficult to follow because so much of it doesn't really apply to us, but nonetheless, we have to go through the steps to make sure that the Unified Air District feels comfortable that we have in fact met all of the standards, and they're continually changing. Which is a bit unfair, but that's just how it is. With respect to the traffic study, we hired Jose Benavides. Mr. Benavides did a comprehensive study of obviously the cumulative of both of the projects together in the short term, and as your staff has mentioned to you, out in the 2040 range. There are, as the mayor mentioned, there are potential for cumulative effects, and there were recommendations in that traffic study that enunciated what we should do to mitigate those, and not the least of which is pay $756,500 in traffic mitigation fees. So that's our contribution to those precise concerns that were raised by Mr. Benavides. My recollection of the Planning Commission action was a little bit different than perhaps you've heard, and that was that we were to go back and meet with staff and try to work out if there was in fact a better solution, a safer solution. So we've had those conversations with Mr. Benavides, with your engineering staff, our engineers, and we believe, as the staff report says, it's very safe. George, would you be so kind as to put my drawing up for a moment? And there's really three reasons, and I had a conversation again with Mr. Benavides again today, just to make sure that I had it precisely correct. The first issue has to do with the arc. And so that arc is very similar to the arc that starts to occur on Clovis Avenue just north of Alluvial. And what that does is it shortens your view tangent as you're traveling. So Mr. Benavides says it may not be much, but it has an impact on the view of people that are slowing down to make turns into the subdivision. The second issue has to do with potential U-turns, and that's the dotted line. That would be the U-turn movement if we allowed a right turn into the subdivision. And Mr. Benavides was very clear. He says, these create conflicts. And those conflicts are, not only are the movements slow, but as you get into the southbound the new tangent of Clovis Avenue, that traffic is also going slow. So you have fast-moving traffic coming towards the intersection, and now you're interjecting new traffic into that traffic flow that's going slower. That was of concern to him. And then third, and you're all aware that we want to separate the distance of any driveway to an intersection so that people don't feel that they have to accelerate or take chances to get into those turn lanes. So those are the three simple reasons why we believe that the design that we have works very well. We still have a right turnout. Emergency vehicles can safely go in and out of the subdivision and provide adequate service. The question too about traffic on DeWitt, just to kind of put it in perspective, Clovis Avenue is an arterial. DeWitt is a local street. And just to give you an idea of the level of traffic that we expect to occur on DeWitt in the peak hours, about a 1 trip per minute or 60 per hour. So if you think about it in that level, while yes, there are the traffic coming out of both of the subdivisions, it's not a lot of traffic if you put it in that perspective of the capability of that local street. The Planning Commission unanimously supported the project. There was no opposition. We're in agreement with all of the conditions. We ask that you approve the project as recommended by your staff.
Any questions for Mr. Puschel? Lynn?
Dirk, I think you partially answered my question, but one of the things I was going to ask, what have you learned elevation project to elevation project? And one of them must be parking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? So
yes.
what else would you say? Anything along the way that you've learned as you've done? How many of these have you done?
Well, as I mentioned to the Planning Commission, Lynn, the elevations project is a compromise. We want to have density and we want to have affordability, but we still want to have good-looking quality homes. Mm-hmm. And all those things are difficult to get into one little box. Mm-hmm. So like all the rest of life, it's a bit of a trade-off, but we think it's a good trade-off. It's one of our best sellers. People love the product. So is it perfect? Probably not, but we try.
No, but I think it's important. Like what have you learned from project to project? So obviously one of them is way more parking than you probably had in the first elevation.
Absolutely, and as you recall, we were shy on parking, and as you probably also recall, there were no sidewalks. And a couple of years ago, we were here before you, and we were going, how do we get sidewalks? Mm-hmm. So we've tried and worked and worked and worked to try to do better.
Well, I think to Joe's point on the clarity question on is there sidewalks, what about the street? I think if we have a clear council policy, I think it's difficult, I would say, for the Planning Commission to say we don't like sidewalks, but the policy is you can't do sidewalks. It just creates a kind of an unnecessary tension at that point. So I guess I heard Joe also asking about that. If we've said that's our policy, then that's what a builder would say, we're going to do that. And then to bump into, well, no, we don't really like those. It's not exact. So I think that's a clarity. We've struggled with that for a while, so I just wanted to acknowledge
That's exactly right. And what we try to do is to take your ordinance and comply with it, and then meet with staff to make sure that we haven't missed anything. So we start off wanting to comply absolutely as much as we can.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bob?
Thank you. Dirk, when you had mentioned one vehicle per minute, is that just including these two projects, the Chadwick and the Elevation?
I believe it's the cumulative number.
The cumulative number, which would also include what is expected on the western side of the way?
Yeah, from the other side, yes.
Okay.
I believe so.
All right. I do want to tell you that if you put a drawing in front of me, I expect it to become reality.
Understood.
And so I see figure 3 in our staff report, and it shows some enriched surface at the trail crosswalk, which I think is going to be very nice. I am hoping for a typical Wilson well-done monument sign there at that intersection. And the fact that we've got a pretty good-sized walkway along Shepherd Avenue, so that would be south of the elevation, is something that I'm really looking forward to as well. So as these things come to a reality, I want to, I guess, compliment you and Wilson ahead of time in making sure that this is a quality project for all of the citizens, not just who live there, but all of the citizens in the city of Clovis to enjoy.
Well, thank you. And we also, just while you're talking about amenities and open space look and changes, there's actually additional right-of-way on the Shepherd side. So I think staff thought, hey, there's an opportunity to make it a little bit more lush, and we're going to implement that.
Jose?
So Dirk, who's buying these homes, the elevation?
Young professionals and people who don't want to mow lawns anymore and travel.
So you're getting the young crowd and also those like me they're done now, they want to downsize. So
Very much so.
So young starters and then those that are done.
Yep, those that are done.
Okay, thank you.
Have these been more appealing to the consumer than the Live product? Which is sort of kind of a little bit bigger than the Elevation, not as big as the Chadwick, because I've seen that those have sold out very well, at least in my area, Southeast, and so. Okay. No, I appreciate the parking stalls because the kind of that small streets, sort of the development on Locan and Ashland, the southwest, and we've seen how the parking has overflowed to Locan because of not extra parking, and there's no parking on certain sides of the sidewalk. And I think this will really help the thoughtfulness in putting in these extra parking spots. And on the right out, will it be built in such a way, the right out onto Clovis Avenue, in which someone will not make a U-turn going north?
Yeah.
Because I know that even in our, I don't know, the Clovis, the Costco shopping center, people make those U-turns even though we built it in a way, and so I just want to make sure that they aren't, we'll look at it where it doesn't allow them to make that quick left turn, even though the car may be slanted.
I'm sure Councilmember Flores can tell you stories, but we're going to do all we can in the design to prohibit that movement.
Okay. And
Mayor Bressinger, both of them.
And I really appreciate the shade structure. Those things are so valuable, especially to families who play in our parks. And so, thank you.
Any other questions for Dirk? Seeing none. Any other member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Sir.
Good evening. My name is James White. Where's Harry? We've been at it for 25 years. So, thank you for the opportunity to stand here. My spouse and I own the majority of acreage on the northeast corner of Minnewawa and Shepherd. It's 130,000 square feet of retail. That's a lot. We don't want a failed center. And we believe that you don't want a failed center. So that's how we're thinking as we begin to start the process. Timing is everything. I see 900 potential customers in the project that you have there up on the board. Is there an easy access, as you understand it, to get from the project you have in the picture to the center across the street, across DeWitt? Would be my question. I'm thinking something like, do we have the availability of putting in something like they have the trail crossing on Alluvial just west of Minnewawa, where you have the lights flashing? We're thinking of a very friendly and safe exchange of people for ingress and egress. So that's a thought that I bring to you tonight, and my appreciation for all your effort for a quarter century.
Any questions for Mr. White?
No, but I have a question for George. George, it looks like there's a bit of a cul-de-sac there on DeWitt. Am I interpreting that correctly?
You are correct.
So if somebody wants to go from the Chadwick models, is there an exit on that bulb?
Yes.
So then they can then somehow get over there to DeWitt?
Correct.
I mean, okay, and then also to the retail. And then I know that, well, I'm presuming that where you're going to have the egress and ingress to the elevation project, that gated area, will there be pedestrian gates as well there?
Right here, yes.
Okay.
It will.
And then from the eastern side, if somebody's on the Chadwick or elevation's eastern side, that, as I see it, that I think it's the right-of-way that Dirk was referring to along Shepherd Avenue is very broad, very pedestrian-friendly, and then they would have an opportunity to cross DeWitt there at Shepherd, and I would imagine relatively safely.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I call you OJ. I don't know. You said you go by James now, but the So it sounds as though there is some real pedestrian-friendly pathways to whatever ends up being developed there. I don't know if necessarily a lit kind of crossing is going to be something that would make a lot of sense at that location, but it's something that probably you need to have a conversation with our city engineer, Mike Harrison, about, and some other folks.
Sir, if you can come up to the microphone, if you would, please.
Presently as designed, I don't see anything.
There's nothing midway.
Presently, there is nothing midway.
Probably won't be needed. I mean, the traffic going up DeWitt will be minimal. People can come out of that cul-de-sac and go just directly west, and people walking there on Shepherd can just cross the street at Shepherd. So the traffic there should be minimal. Wouldn't it be, George?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So they can then, if it's pedestrian and say cyclists, families cycling to west towards Minnewawa, should be safe. It's all because it's not a major street like Clovis will be. It's DeWitt. DeWitt will remain a 2-lane road.
Correct.
So all they'll be crossing is a 2-lane road.
Well, I defer to the wisdom of the room, but I've lived there for 25 years. And there's nothing safe
No?
about that area, not one thing. And they're gonna open up, DeWitt. So I'm speaking from my experience. I'm thinking about babies in carriages, children on bicycles, old people.
Will DeWitt go further
Shuffling along.
north than that project?
It will, and it is planned to turn left right here and further into this quarter section. So if I may, Councilmember Flores, add a little bit more comments to Mr. White's previous comments. I think we have a really good opportunity here with the design of the commercial project to amplify the pedestrian connectivity with the planned residential development here currently proposed, where Mr. White can work with our city engineer to design it to attract pedestrian traffic from the homes to the east.
I'm very grateful for your time.
Thanks, sir.
Question.
Go ahead, Ron.
Any anticipated timeline for you?
Sir, the echo in here drives me crazy.
Oh. Any anticipated time for you to move forward with your project?
It's time.
Yeah, the timeline though, the next year, 2 years?
Hasn't been developed.
Okay. And,
I'm sorry, I overtalked you.
no, go ahead. Finishing.
This evening is start line.
Okay. Well, I agree with staff where if you can work to make it where the entrances are something that attracts and that's also an entrance to your future development, I think that'll be a great focal point. And what I've seen at other retail places is only the crossing is pedestrian friendly into commercial places. For example, when you cross from Cool Luke's to the Sierra Vista Mall, you have a crossing, but right when you get there, no more sidewalk. It's grass mounds, and so the pedestrian has no other place to go. So if you develop in the future, if you can make it where the pedestrian continues to have a path, and I think that's what leads to where people want to cross and to continue to go to wherever the shops are. So.
My vision is not limited to overpasses and tunnels. So, yes. Very much like for it to be a successful center. And I believe, I've heard tonight, if the echo didn't distort it, that we have something to work on.
Thanks, sir. Any other member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Do we have anybody on web?
No.
And Mr. Clerk, we didn't get any comments on this item. Okay, I will close public comments and come back to the council for discussion or action.
Can I ask one more question, staff? I'm perplexed now by the cul-de-sac. I think I'm not understanding that. It's not a cul-de-sac because there's no houses. I mean, I guess it could be a cul-de-sac about houses, but it doesn't go anywhere. So tell me how that works.
Yeah, this is an older proposed exhibit. So let me just go back to the proposed exhibit.
I didn't see that in here, and now when you said cul-de-sac, I thought,
Yeah.
well, wait, where did that come from? Oh, okay. So it's just
It's more like a knuckle here, and it's planned to turn left, heading west.
headed, DeWitt's intended to turn left, headed west.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Okay, that makes a lot more sense, because that map made me,
You also have a conceptual map, right, of the extended potential?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was included in the staff report. Unfortunately, I didn't include it in my presentation.
you only had 1,200 pages to choose from. I don't know why you didn't choose that one, George, for heaven's sakes.
Any other comments, or?
I'll make a motion that we start with the first one, to approve an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for pre-zone 2016-10 and the vesting 10 of track map 6050.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
And I'll make a request to approve the pre-zone from the county AE 20 zone district to the Clovis R1 PRD zone district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
And finally, a request, I'll make a motion to approve the vesting tentative tract map for a 255 lot, single-family plan residential development.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. George, that was an excellent presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may make a clarification.
You may.
With the motion, can we please clarify if the council wishes to eliminate the condition that was at?
And my second would include that.
Yes.
Sorry, I meant to do that and I forgot. So yes, I wish to delete that too. So I will amend my motion, and the second is agreeable.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. Sorry about that.
Item 14, consider approval of a resolution 303, a resolution of application for the annexation of territory known as the Shepherd Clovis Northwest Reorganization, located at the northwest corner of Shepherd and North Clovis Avenues, 650 Enterprises LP, owner applicant, Harbor and Associates representative. George is our presenter. George.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant this evening is also requesting the council's consideration and approval to annex the entire project site, which is approximately 38.5 acres. This property is within the city's sphere of influence, and it is consistent with the Heritage Growth Design Guidelines. There is only one property owner within the affected area, therefore resulting in a 100% consent annexation. And currently, there are no registered voters within this annexation. Therefore, staff recommends that the council this evening approve a resolution of annexation for the annexation of the territory known as the Shepherd Clovis Northwest Reorganization. That concludes my presentation.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none in the chambers, do we have any on the web?
No.
And Mr. Clerk, we had no written items on this item? Correct. Right. So I will close public comments and come back to council for action.
I'll move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 15 is consider adoption of an ordinance 20-11 R 2019-009, a request to reconsider approval of a rezone of approximately 4 acres of property located at the southwest corner of Temperance and Nees Avenues from the RA Single-Family Residential Very Low Density Zone District to the CP Professional Office Zone District in order to address the condition requiring trail improvements on the west side of the property. Beal Properties Incorporated property owner applicant, and Lily Cha is Dave is the presenter. Dave.
Yeah, let me begin by apologizing that I'm not Lily Cha. Dave Merchant, city planner. Lily has done a fantastic job as a project manager for the project, including preparing nearly all of the staff report and the presentation this evening. And I'm pretty sure she's at home watching right now. So Lily, hopefully I don't mess this up for you. As you noted, this is a request for a reconsideration of rezoning 2019-09. And we scheduled it as a rezoning reconsideration, but really what we're looking for is a clarification and a confirmation as to the specific wording on the trail improvement requirement that the council incorporated at the last public hearing. And it's agendized as a reconsideration to allow the council the flexibility to change the wording if that's ultimately what you want to do. There's no obligation to change the wording. It's at your discretion. As I noted, this is a request for rezoning of the property at the southwest corner of Nees and Temperance Avenues to the Professional Office Zone District. That's in conformance with the adopted general plan. The council introduced this particular rezoning at its May 18th meeting, along with a condition that trail improvements be added along the western side of the property line along the project's Enterprise Canal frontage. And really, again, that's what we're here to talk about specifically, is that trail improvement standard. The project has seen quite a bit of action since the May 18th meeting. Staff has held a number of meetings that involved Legacy Construction, which had been the applicant until recently, the underlying property owner, which is Beal Properties, the representative of the affected property owner to the south of the project site. About a week ago, Legacy Construction and its client pulled out of the project and are no longer with us. The underlying property owner, Beal Properties, has requested to move forward with the rezoning application to prepare the site for development. It's still a very marketable site, and both they and the city hope that we can get it ready for the next project applicant that comes forward. The property owner, represented by Mr. Beal, as well as the adjacent property owner, represented by Bobby Fina, have provided correspondence describing their concern with the trail dedication requirement and what it does to the feasibility of their property. Both owners have requested that the council authorize a trail alternative which does not require dedication of their properties. Of particular note is the dedication of the property on the property to the south of the rezoning site. That site, represented again by Bobby Fina, it's owned by the Noble family, is currently a little less than 1 acre, and dedication of a standard trail section would certainly make the development potential questionable on that site. I want to talk about trail design and development criteria a little bit, because it affects the recommendations that staff would put in front of you for alternatives, and might be worthy of your consideration as you define what exactly you're looking for trail improvements or trail dedications on this site. First is that trails like this potential trail are community amenities and are thus funded through park impact fees, grants, and other public funding sources. Trails are developed as CIP projects designed and constructed by the city, and sometimes by the development community in conjunction with development projects. When it's the latter instance, and developers are asked to construct improvements, the city pays them for the right-of-way and the improvements that they construct, either through fee credits or cash reimbursements. We generally look to avoid mid-block crossings when feasible when we're designing trails, and that's largely why the active transportation plan sought to realign the Nees and Temperance area away from the Enterprise Canal and along the street frontages. That's a where feasible question and isn't necessarily an absolute prohibition. Where mid-block crossings are necessary, trails should not develop until the crossing improvements are also constructed. That's to staff kind of an obvious one, that we wouldn't want to build a trail that required a mid-block crossing without putting in the crossing improvements that make it safe. And finally, trails that dead end into private property should generally be avoided. Some recent examples near Sunnyside and Fowler probably give us a good example of why we'd want to avoid that. So the next part of the discussion is about trail standards and the alternatives for moving forward. Any option that looked at adding a trail along the Enterprise Canal between Nees and Temperance would require 2 mid-block and controlled trail crossings. We generally refer to a set of adopted standards for the construction of mid-block crossings and what we need to make them as safe as possible. And the level of the safety improvements, as shown in this exhibit, uses the standard of the street, the level of traffic, the speed limit, and the 85th percentile speed, which is the measurement that helps set the speed limit, to define what kind of improvements would be required to make that as safe as possible. For these 2 streets, both of which are 4-lane arterials, the C level standard, which is essentially the highest level of improvement, would be triggered as necessary for mid-block crossings. That's basically a flashing sensor, and I think the city engineer is here somewhere, can describe it in more detail if you'd like, but it's a flashing light. So this is the general configuration of what the mid-block crossings would look like next to the area in question. They're basically a realigned crossing that takes a jog in the middle to prohibit folks from driving straight through or running straight through, as well as having a landing spot for the lights to be triggered. Both crossings at Dees and Temperance would be very similar in their design. So the alternatives themselves, the first option is what we typically think of as a city standard trail. It has a right-of-way of about 30 to 35 feet. It's off the canal bank, off the canal right-of-way for that matter, and includes about a 10-foot paved trail section along with landscaping. This would be staff's interpretation of what a standard trail would be if that's what the council's intention was to provide. And the small exhibit on the left-hand side of the screen is generally what that configuration would look like on the subject property and the property to the south. So what that looks like in terms of cost, you can see there's about $612,000 estimated. The bulk of that is in right-of-way cost and the costing of the trail crossings. Crossings run just a little over $200,000 a piece, so that's probably where the bulk of the costs lie. A related option, option 2, is also a city trail out of the canal right-of-way, and the only difference here is that we're looking at a reduced trail right-of-way with a little bit less landscaping, potentially incorporating the reduced right-of-way with some on-site landscaping for the project itself. Still allows a 10-foot wide trail section, just a little bit less amenities related to it. If we're to look at that, the cost drops to $564,000. Basically, the reduction is in right-of-way and landscaping. Option 3 is today not something that we could immediately implement. Option 3 would involve using or working with FID to use the canal bank for trail pathway and potentially incorporating some dedications from the property for landscaping and other enhancements. This would require us to negotiate with FID to be able to accomplish the FID right-of-way alternative. The cost for option 3 dropped to $464,000. You see there's no right-of-way costs there and no landscaping costs. Crossings are still in place and constitute the bulk of the improvements, along with some relatively minor costs to develop the trail on top of the bank. If we were to want to incorporate some right-of-way acquisition for trail enhancements or additional trail landscaping, those costs would go up. And finally, option 4 is to not require the trail dedication along the property and enhance the existing trail alignments on Temperance and Dees Avenues. That would involve installing some signage to help folks find their way along the trail alignments, as well as to expand the width of the sidewalk along the portion of Temperance Avenue to match that which exists for the trail path. You can see there the cost drops fairly dramatically down to about $35,000. So staff is seeking council's direction for the rezoning and the trail improvements that would ultimately be asked of any future developer of this site. Staff's recommendation is that the actual trail construction to the extent that there is construction, wait until both the crossings have been designed and are ready to install, and that the trail can extend all the way through both properties so that there's a full connection between these and Temperance. So following that general recommendation from staff, what we'd like to ask for is a confirmation of the right-of-way that we'd be looking for. Are we looking for a full, call it a 30-foot section? Would a 15-foot section be adequate? Or would we be willing to look at working with FID and hoping that we can negotiate the use of the FID right-of-way? Of course, the council always has the opportunity to provide any other direction that you want, including prioritizing the acquisition of right-of-way all the way through both properties and incorporating the improvements into the capital improvement community investment program right away, or to ask for construction of the first developer that comes through. But I wanted to provide you background as to why we think that maybe isn't the best solution at this point. So with that, I'll stop talking and try to answer any questions you have.
Bob?
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this back to the council. I think that there was some ambiguity in the motion that was made, and I think clarity is appropriate. As I read through the documents that were attached to the staff report, it seems pretty clear that option 3 is the approach that is most amenable to the owners of the property that are to the east of the Enterprise Canal there. They both seem to be, much, I guess it's, if you're giving them a choice, they are preferring this one as opposed to taking away their land in the form of a right-of-way. If you wouldn't mind, could you go to the slide that showed kind of a diagonal crossing in the middle? That's the one. Yeah. So as for those who have traveled this particular area along the canal, and people do, I do, I've ridden a bicycle around there, what you'll notice, and I think it's clear, most clear on the bottom right image, that in the median, you see where the red is, that's actually a depression in the median. It has always been the intent, at least until there was some direction to kind of get it to go on a sidewalk. But there's always been the intent that that is where we would have the trail cross there, and that's alluvial, and then Temperance as well. So I'm sorry, that's Temperance in the bottom right, and then, Nees in the top left. So people have already have this expectation. I think that the Mr. Beal, when I don't know how long he's owned that property, but certainly has had noticed that that is pretty clearly what the intention is. I would also point out that where those depressions are in the median, they are more along the lines of where the canal bank is. They are not into the property that is owned by anyone other than FID. It runs really consistent with the embankment, if you will, of the canal. So I think that for my purposes, when I made the motion, the thought was to be consistent with what we've already identified via the construction, or at least the physical structures that we see in that median, that's going to be more along that canal bank as opposed to getting into some property that's owned by people other than FID. I know we've been working with FID on a lot of issues related to trails. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue to work with them, and that to have the trail go that way is going to be consistent with what the expectations are for our citizens. I will say that even if we say there's no trail there, people are still going to use it as a trail. So I think our obligation is to figure out how we can best construct it as intended and in a safe manner so that people will utilize it. I'm not so sure that the jogging there is really I mean, I understand the reason behind it. I'm not so sure that that's something that we've seen before. The trail that, area that, you know, our family crosses, as, you know, thousands of other families cross, is there at Peach, and then also at Alluvial. I know we have one at Fowler that is not as fully utilized, but it's amazing how many people are walking, particularly right now, and riding their bicycle at that particular location, those Peach and Alluvial crossings. I think these are going to be more heavily trafficked. I think that, you know, Nees and Temperance are more heavily trafficked and will continue to be more heavily trafficked. But I think that we need to follow through with what we've kind of already telegraphed, because people are using it right now and will continue to use it no matter what, you know, we may legislate. So I think option 3 is suitable for the landowners, and it certainly would be consistent with my request in the motion.
Just a clarification. Councilmember Whalen makes an observation that we have made any number of times as we talk to folks, and on the ground, it couldn't look any more like we intend for people to cross along those depressed areas. What those actually are FID accommodating design features that allow the FID vehicles to go across the median along their canal right away. And they do have to bypass the no pedestrian signs that are located in the median. But I do agree, and so do others that have looked at it, that it looks very inviting and clearly like we're asking people or inviting people to cross, and without any other directional signage which points them in another way. But we certainly understand your point. And while the comparisons to Alluvial and Peach are similar, at least one difference that we've noted is that those are collector streets as opposed to the 4-lane arterials here, which should carry more traffic over time.
What about
but your
Fowler?
point is well taken.
Would you say Fowler is a collector, where we have something very similar to the...
I believe Fowler is a collector.
Okay.
I mean, an arterial, yes.
I thought it was an arterial. Okay, thank you.
Jose? Well, my vision for that, because I think my thoughts are similar to what Bob's saying. People are going to cross Nees and they're going to cross Temperance. They're going to use that trail that is naturally there because of the canal. And I never thought that we take any property from any of the landowners. I thought it was always about FID's property. So I can't find option 3. Where'd you get it?
You can't find option 3, is that what you said?
Yeah,
Oh,
It is actually in the staff report, but it's that one there, which is the cross-section you can see.
okay, so that's the one, yeah, that one. So that's what I was thinking as far as what I envisioned for that section of the canal. Because if we're going to build that highway bridge, people are going to want to stay on that canal all the way to the bridge. It's going to be enticing. It's going to be it's going to be the path of less resistance. To do that street thing, I just don't see people doing it. And it's going to cause us issues with both Nees and Temperance, because they're major streets to cross. But and when you say crossings and their cost, what are we talking about? What's the improvement there that costs so much?
I'm not sure that there's one single kind of improvement. Basically what we're doing is installing an ADA accessible, level path that connects each side of the street with a jog in the middle, and adding electronic features such as the flashing light, and/or lighting and signage to make it safe. So it's the combined improvements that generate the total cost.
And that's for both the Nees portion and the Temperance portion, or just Nees, or just Temperance?
For each crossing.
So it's times two then?
Yes.
Is what you're saying?
It's a little over $200,000 per crossing.
Okay, so then it's divided by two. Yeah, you had a figure of 400,000, so that's divided by two. So
Correct.
each one would add up to that amount. So, yeah, that's what I envisioned we would be doing. We would be partnering with FID using some of, and now don't we have agreements with them? That we can now use part of that land, not necessarily taking land from the owners there, but coordinating, when they develop.
Lynn?
My question is that, do we have agreement with FID? I mean, if we choose option 3, but we don't have any ability to make it real because FID is not interested, is that really an option then, I guess, in our lifetime?
So we are working on hopefully getting an agreement with FID. We thought it was close. Some issues have come up, and it's maybe not quite as close as we thought. But there is no guarantee at this time that we have the right to use that canal bank, and will retain any right in the future. Hopefully we get it, but I can't promise it at this time.
So would it be wise if we chose 2 options? Like if that doesn't work, if that's the option we choose and we can't get it or we'll be back here, I mean, does it make sense that you would choose, if not that, then something else, or no?
That is certainly an option. Some of it would just be to add clarity to future developers that are looking at those parcels. You know, as indicated in the correspondence, especially a 30-foot wide right away, and especially on that southern lot, takes a bigger percentage of the property. If we had a fallback position, that might make it a little easier for them to plan ahead, you know, with the goal continuing to be to try to put it on top of the canal bank. But even then, I think this canal bank would take some widening, because I don't think it is wide enough for the trail on top, so there would be some property loss. So if we had something along, you know, option 1 and option 2, with the property owner realizing that they might have to, you know, hopefully not, but might have to give us 15 feet, the 15-foot right away, the option 2, something along those lines would be helpful.
Fine. Dave, in our Parks and Trails plan, this was never a part of that plan. It was never something in which a developer would have seen, correct? Where, oh, I'm building and I know that there's already a trail coming into my property.
So the answer to that is a little less, you know, clear, unfortunately.
Okay.
Let me give you just a very brief background. The general plan includes a diagram which shows the trail located along the canal alignment. So that was adopted in 2014 as just one of the general exhibits in the general plan. Fast forward a couple of years to the preparation and adoption of the active transportation plan, and which we view as the implementation of the diagram in the general plan. And the evaluation conducted in the active transportation plan, or the ATP, identified the concern regarding the street volumes and speed, and then placed the trail on the mesotemperance frontages rather than on the canal frontage. So if you look at the general plan, you'll still see the canal alignment. If you look at the implementation document, the ATP, it shows the realigned trail along the street frontage. This particular, I shouldn't say this particular applicant, the original applicant for the development of the project, when they came in, they asked about the trail alignment and were specifically told the ATP places the trail along the street frontages and there's no dedication or improvement requirement. So neither here nor there, but they did ask the right question and were informed based on the ATP as to what the requirement would be, and which is one of the reasons why they were caught unaware at the council's last meeting.
Okay, and I think that has to have some weight with regards to how we deal with applicants who come before us, that there has to be some weight given to what we have shared with them. And the staff was operating on the understanding that the trail goes on East and then down to Temperance, on the east side anyway. And so, you know, when I first brought this up, I just wanted some directional, so that way when the RT park, that trail comes to sort of Temperance, they kind of know where to go. And that was my largest intent. I think I see what we're doing. Does the landowner then pay for any part of the trail? If we go with one or two, because we're putting a trail there, do they have to contribute to that trail?
Not directly. Their contribution becomes their payment of the park's impact fee.
Okay, so nothing more than what they would have already been assessed.
Correct.
Okay, and then it would be the city's job to maintain it? It'll be upon us to maintain it after it's built?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Yes, sir.
Hello, council. Thank you for having this meeting tonight, bringing this issue up again to discuss the details. My name is Trevor Beal. I work for Beal Properties. We're the property owner at this time of the larger portion on Temperance and Nice. And as mentioned by Dave earlier, previous applicant, Legacy Construction and Development, is no longer going through the purchase of this property due to a few factors. This issue was of concern for them, as well as some issues with potential tenants that were going to go in there. So right now we're at the point where we're an active seller of this property, and we want to see a development take place that, you know, brings the same quality and feel that the rest of buildings and development along Temperance and near Clovis community have brought to the area. And we're of the opinion that we understand there is trail use along the canal area, and we're also of the opinion that the trail was designated to be included along Nice and Temperance Avenue. And that's kind of the information that the applicant was working on before, the knowledge that it was going to run on those avenues and not really be implemented along the canal area. But we are sympathetic to the development of the trail areas, and we believe that there is a solution in one of the options that the staff has put forward today. On our side, we're not quite as concerned about, you know, is it 5 feet or 10 feet or 20 feet that is given up for the trail, but I know that the property owners to the south, it's going to, you know, very heavily impact what is able to be done at their location. And we think that what should be done here is something that can ensure both parcels are developed and developed in a way that is going to meet the standards in this area. I believe minimum building requirements are about 10,000 square feet in this tract, and I think that in order to accomplish that, there has to be a little bit of compromise from the council's portion, as well as from us as the property owners. So that's our status right now. We have multiple interested parties in the 4-acre parcel. We believe that within the next year's timeline, it will be sold and developed. But we also want to take into account that we'd like to get this property rezoned and ready for a buyer, so that the process is a little bit simpler and they can move forward with that development quickly. And also they can take into account that the property owners to the south are going to share in the consequences or benefits of what's decided here. So that's our statement.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Beal? None. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Bobby Fina. I'm a longtime commercial real estate broker with Colliers International here in town at 7485 North Palm Avenue. I happen to be fortunate enough to represent both the Beals property on the hard corner of Temperance and Nice and the Noble family Jeff Noble and his sister Patty Kissling are here in the audience tonight. And I just want to echo everything that Trevor said. We're looking at it from a logical perspective. None of this was ever mentioned anywhere through any of the DRC committee meetings that there would be a condition like this. And the reality of it is, at first blush, when you take 30 feet of property off that side, we had a site plan that Legacy had done, and it eliminated one whole row of parking. And for a medical office complex anywhere, whether it's Clovis, Fresno, doesn't matter, to eliminate that kind of parking is difficult, because medical requires that, and also would then reduce the amount of buildable square footage you could build. And it's further magnified when you look at the Noble property to the south, because that's a smaller piece. It's about an acre, and it has almost, it's sort of a pie-shaped piece. And when you take 30 feet off of that whole west end, it eliminates about a third of it. So one of the other questions then comes, the city has a 10,000 square foot minimum building size. I don't know if we can make that after losing that kind of land area on that smaller parcel. So just want to echo that I think the city is working with us, trying to come up with a solution. And I just think that from just a simple real estate guy's point of view, the trail's always, as far as I can remember, been there along Nice and along Temperance, and I don't see the need to have to change it, but that's my opinion. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Fina. Any questions for Mr. Fina? Thanks, sir. Any other member of the public wish to address council on this item? Seeing none in chambers, do we have anybody online?
None.
Mr. Clerk, did we get any written correspondence on this item? Okay, I will close public comments and come back to council for discussion and for action.
Well, I think I might have misspoke a little bit related to the correspondence that we received from Mr. Beal and Mr. Fina. I had read his correspondence to indicate that he would be in favor of option 3. I don't know if that's completely accurate. Let me read option 3 into the record. It says, explore opportunities using the Fresno Irrigation District Canal Bank as a trail pathway. Property dedication may be required towards trail pathway width and landscaping. And then Mr. Fina's correspondence indicated that at the bottom of his first page, he says, no dedication. These would be the things that he would support, agree and support, these two options. No dedication of the property for trail purposes, the existing Fresno Irrigation District Canal Bank to be utilized as the trail path itself. I read that to mean option 3. I think that's how I interpreted option 3. But option 3 does leave some wiggle room for perhaps a little bit of use of the private property. But the view is, and I think it's the view of this council, that we, unless the property owners really see this trail as an amenity, which I think it is an amenity to their property, we want to use as little of their property as possible in order to get people along that canal bank. I think that option 3 still has some ambiguity in it. It is that which is most consistent with what I read in Mr. Fina's letter and Mr. Beal's letter, and what it is that we would like to have happen. And again, that is to explore opportunities using the FID Canal Bank as a trail pathway. Property dedication may be required towards trail pathway width and landscaping. But I think that we would want that to be as minimal as possible. Does that sound about right? And so so I'm going to move that we adopt the ordinance. Are we still at first reading, or we consider this a reconsideration? Or the introduction, I should say.
I think the safest course of action is to reintroduce with a modified condition if that's where you're going.
All right. I move then that we consider the adoption or introduce this ordinance 20-11, and that the condition that we prefer is option 3 as listed in the staff report.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yeah.
Okay. If we do this, Dave, since there's no clarity, how long will or potentially, for example, if the applicants don't even know how much we're going to take, they can never really plan for that part of that section. And so it makes it very difficult to, sell it, to plan for it, because it's all dependent upon, first, us getting an agreement with FID, which hopefully it's soon, but it could be long. And so in business, time is everything. So I don't want to hold them hostage. And we represented to them clearly that that was never on the table. And I think for 5 of us to put it on, I think it's difficult for someone to do business. And so that, I just want to, can you answer how they move forward if we go this way? What's the time frame and what kind of clarity can they have in marketing their land?
I think you are correct in that although option 3 provides them with less of a burden than would otherwise be the case with options 1 and 2, there is some uncertainty that won't be worked out until we know what FID can live with, and we have a design for the trail. I don't have a timeline for that, and I don't know where that would fit in with the CIP. All I can tell you is that we would hope as staff to be able to expedite that in conjunction with, if not before, any new project came through with a site plan.
And my other concern is also with the safety of the crossing. These streets are heavily traveled. Fowler goes into sort of the dry creek where there's not a lot of residents. I mean, Temperance, people are going down that street fast, and the roundabout is not going to help because now traffic keeps moving. And that, I think, deserves a deeper study from the staff to let us know, the liability of such a big street and such a fast street, what that will potentially cause us. So those are my 2 biggest concerns with sort of option 3.
Linda, did you have something?
Yeah, I agree with Vaughn. I think, I wonder if there's a 5th option that just says remove the condition requiring trail improvements and continue to work with staff until we can reach a reasonable alternative. I think if we said there's no dedication, now we're saying there might be, I don't feel like that's probably quite right. So I'm of the opinion that we just remove the condition with language that says continue to work with staff on either the trail or the FID canal bank or the street access, or I would be in favor of number 4. People are going to use the trail whether it's a trail or not. I mean, the canal bank, if it's whether it's a trail or not, they're going to, I think that's what they're going to do. So I'm not sure that's as far as you were going, but I'm not sure that it's fair. I think the word explore opportunities is super vague. I could be exploring until 2030. And I don't feel like it's an action. I feel like it's a direction to staff. So I would be inclined to add a 5th alternative that says what I just said as an option. So I'm not willing to connect it right now to going just that way as our sole option. So unless it's both 3 or 4 or a more general condition about exploring the pathway and choosing the best one when it's, we have the right information, that's what I would do at this point.
We have a motion and a second already out. Bob, did you want to amend yours?
Yeah, one more question. So I know we've talked about the applicant coming to you and saying, okay, so is there, they notice that there's a potential for trail or pedestrian travel along the canal bank. Which applicant was that? Was that Legacy?
Yes.
Okay. And Legacy is not the applicant today?
Correct.
Okay. So the conversation that was had was with Legacy, and I just asked that question just to kind of clarify, I think, what Vong's point was. I think that we all want to get to a point where we can make that pathway as safe as possible for people who are going to be crossing it, because I think that we all know that they're going to be crossing it at Temperance and at Nice. So the the fifth option is intriguing only because it sounds like we're not going to be requiring these property owners to contribute any cash, at least, to trail improvement in that area. It's just going to be the general requirement that they have to contribute to the parks and that we have for our fees, development fees. So I want to also be clear, though, that as we work through it, that there should be an expectation that people are going to be traveling on that trail bank, and we want to do what we can as a city to make that crossing or those crossings as safe as possible. So I guess I want to kind of draw out from you, Lynn, that option 5 a little bit more. I don't know if you haven't had an opportunity to give it much thought, I don't think, but.
Well, maybe it's just the hybrid. Maybe it is explore opportunities for the trail something, access, safety in this, in this vicinity, including the canal bank, the canal bank, or the streets. I mean, I think just giving some way to accomplish Bob's objective of safety, but not locking into the FID as the only solution. That doesn't seem tenable to me. So I think, I don't know enough about those details, but that's trying to find like there's some other opportunity besides 3 and 4, which is 5, because I'm not good at math. And 3 plus 4 equals 5. You're welcome. So that's what I would suggest. And maybe, David, you could help with some language that includes some of that. But it feels like that would give the property owner some clarity, that you're not worried that we're going to take 30% of your piece of your parcel. You can have clarity if you're going to sell or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's planning on taking 30 feet of
whatever that number I read in there was, yeah.
But the,
so I don't know if that helps.
But no, well, maybe a little bit. How much time before FID and us are back to the table?
I believe we have another meeting either this week or next week. But I can't say that we're going to reach a resolution.
Yeah. And Trevor, where'd you go? Trevor, your family's anxious to get this moving along. I mean, because obviously I'm thinking out loud here about, gee, we sure would like to get some assurances from FID so we know where we are before we put any condition on your property. So I don't know how you feel about delay. So if we had option 3, going back to what the motion is, option 3, and you were to, and can I get you to come to the microphone? I'm sorry, Trevor. We just want to make sure we've got a good record of the conversation. If we go forward with option 3, and it has language that says that we will explore opportunities using the FID Canal Bank as a trail pathway. Property dedication may be required towards trail pathway width and landscaping. Is that something that you're going to be able to attach to a conversation that you have with any potential purchaser of that property?
I think that's definitely a better spot than where we're at currently. I think, what's your opinion, Bobby?
Well,
there's a big fine line here on property.
So if you,
It can't be a bud.
yeah, can we get you to come to the microphone though? Sure. And then if you wouldn't mind, we know that you're the property owner there to the South Park.
I'm Jeff Noble.
Thank you, Jeff.
How are you tonight? Hey, here's my opinion on it.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I know you closed the session, and I'm just, sorry, okay.
What is the intent? I mean, why is this trail on this canal bank so important? That's just my question to you.
So, have you seen people using that canal bank?
Yeah, not a lot, but I have. But I've seen probably more people going the safer way.
Okay.
Which is the Nice and the Temperance crosswalks.
Okay.
I mean, that's your safest way to go.
So I guess what's important to me and maybe us is that we provide some safe pathway to those people who are going to continue to use that canal bank. We've seen this. We can't legislate, you know, where people go unless we just, you know, start blocking off property. And you know, that's an option for FID, and they.
There's a lot of that on FID. If you go down into the canal banks, there are fences and there's gates you can't go through.
And so we are working with FID in order to eliminate that from taking place. So I think our objective is to make sure how is it that we can allow for safe passage across Temperance and Nice. Now, as far as the ambiguity associated with how much of your property you're going to have to dedicate, we're not going to destroy your property. 30 feet is way out of the question.
Absolutely.
And to the degree that we can keep it minimal,
right,
that's what we're going to do. In fact, if we could say none, that's what I think that would be our choice as well. But there is some ambiguity in this language, but you know, it's difficult for anybody in government to say, trust us, but you need to know, at least with these 5 council members, we're not wanting to take, we would prefer not to take any of your property because of the dynamics that Bobby has illustrated to us, I think, pretty well.
Right.
That are imposed by the government.
Sure.
So we, I mean, that's what we're wanting to do. I don't know if that helps explain.
It does, but the safety of those crosswalks, and I'm sure you guys have been across numerous ones. The blinking lights, you know, they're there. A lot of people don't see it. If you've been on Temperance Avenue in the driveway of our property, these people fly through there about 50 or 60 miles an hour. And Nice Avenue is going to be even worse because the sun comes up from the east, and if you're driving at the wrong time of the day, you can't see those blinking lights. You can see a crosswalk because you see the signals. So that's just my point, my own opinion. And Temperance Avenue has become an absolute thoroughfare of racing. So it's just an opinion that I have. Not only do I not want to lose 30 feet of the property, but I'm thinking of how safe it's going to be for the people that are going to use the trail.
Yeah, I guess my view is, and we could probably go on all night about it, is that people are going to use it.
Unless you put a gate on it.
Unless you put a gate on it, and then you'd be surprised how many people just lift their bicycle over the gate or just go over the gate.
Sure.
So so we want to, I just want to make it as safe as possible for those people that are going to be crossing there.
Sure.
And that means, you know, putting in some of those crossings.
Well, I just would, I mean, if we can figure out a footage, I mean, I don't have a problem with giving up a little bit of property, but like I said, the 30 feet is just out of the question.
David has a suggestion.
Yeah, and I was thinking of this, I was waiting for the right time. Well, you could, if you're going to use option 3, one possibility is to say a maximum dedication of 5 feet or whatever you think is reasonable. That way, at least they have some certainty when they're going out and marketing the property. So you can still have your option 3, maximum dedication of whatever it is, or you have Councilmember Ashbeck's option 5, and then of course you can remove the condition altogether and just work toward a trail solution. So but that's one way to add clarity to option 3 is to put up no more than so much dedication. It could be 0, it could be an alternative, it could be not having crossings at all, but it'd be, at least they would know with certainty it would never be more than however many feet.
Yeah. And I thank you. I think that's helpful. I think with the Beal property, that that's going to be an amenity that's going to be attractive, I think, to the people who are going to want to buy it. But 30 feet is too much. Your property is a little bit different because you don't have a lot of footage to give away, right? So it would be, I mean, I don't.
5 feet's a lot.
Yeah, right. I agree. So, but if we set at least for your property 5 feet. I don't know if that's going to have, I don't know if you, Bobby, did you do those calculations to figure out if we took 5 feet, or what feet would allow for the development that you guys want there? Okay.
So I'm not real clear on this. Are we dedicating this as in giving it, or are somebody buying it from us, or how does that work?
So when people request rezones, or they request some action on the part of the city council, as we engage with them, there is some negotiation that does take place. I don't know, but there are some conversations along those lines that would be taking place when you guys are ready.
The developers that have all the houses, to the north, that are making this trail a lot more busy, did they have to pay into any of this for this trail?
It's a linear park.
It is.
It's what we're trying to do. And unfortunately, it makes sense north of you, but this is a dangerous kind of sticky situation because of needs and because of temper.
Absolutely.
So we acknowledge that we have to be careful here because of the traffic. And so as a city, we want them to go on that intersection. But we know that it's an attractive nuisance. People are still going to do it. So, we got to, if it's predictable, it's going to happen. So we got to anticipate those things. So, but we also want a continuance of that trail as well, that linear part. That you can literally go from one end of Clovis to another on that trail. And it's become a very beautiful amenity. People are using it more and more. And we have other plans to even cross it, across the freeway.
Correct.
But we got to do this in a smart way so we don't, to ensure that we're not buying up some liability too.
Right. Okay.
Mike, do you have any input here?
Yeah, to answer the question directly about the compensation, they would be compensated at fair market value for any dedication they provide for the trail itself. So hopefully that answers that question. And in developing this cross-section, as we develop adjacent to FID canals, FID requires that we make sure that there's at least 20 feet of bank surface. So if this particular section is lacking in that 20 feet, there would be a dedication required to get the bank to the full width that it needs to be. There may be some sloping that has to occur to get down to level. And we thought that there needed to be some landscaping adjacent to the trail. As property develops, there's typically some sort of a landscape buffer adjacent to the parking field anyway. Typically that's about 5 feet. That's what was proposed on the legacy development that you saw. This combined with maybe a few more feet allows us to put a tree there, and so that's what we had in mind as far as what that width needs to be and why there's a little bit of ambiguity. It's just probably just a few feet we're talking about.
Few is 3. Could do.
So how do we come up with what do we do? I mean, you just can't say 2, 3, 3 feet, 4 feet. I mean, where do we go?
So it would seem that David's suggestion that no more than 5 feet probably would work in this situation.
And maybe if we put, our intention is to take none, if at all possible. Maybe make that part of it. And
Mayor, I have a question of staff. Go ahead. Dave, when the general plan, and I forgot the name of the next plan that says the trail goes, when they're in conflict, what takes precedence? The general plan says, it draws that trail like what we're talking today. But you said there was a subsequent document in which we as a city decided that it would go like that. When that is in conflict, what takes precedence?
We've had that discussion internally. The active transportation plan of the ATP is the more recent document, and we viewed it as intending to implement the general plan. And so it is the more specific and more recent document, and as we interpret it as staff, it would prevail.
Yeah, see, I think that's guiding, and so that's why I'm very firm on, let's stick to what we already have on the books, so that way these applicants know for sure.
Lynn?
Well, I have an alternative motion, but there's one on the floor, so I think I'd like to call for the question on this motion unless you want to amend it, and then we'd like to offer alternatives that David mentioned.
I'm in the mood for some compromising. Mark this day.
Yeah, no comment. David, I don't know if this is right, but something like explore opportunities to provide continuous safe trail access with a minimum impact on, I don't know how to say it, with minimum property, taking from those people, from the Noble family, with minimum property access by either the FID option or improving the existing trail alignment on street access with increased width and signage. And I think we got to give them 2, and I don't know how to say it's 3 or 5, because if it's 5.5 and then we're back to nothing. So I think there's an option to get the continuous safe trail access with minimum, if any, property acquisition from the Nobles and the Beals, for that matter, both along the whole corridor. And if we can't get it through FID, then I think we have the one on the streets. I think that's what it is. So I would offer option 5.
I think that's great language, but it still would be helpful to have a maximum dedication, I think, just for clarity, so they know what's the worst case scenario.
Well,
if
Mr.
possible.
Noble just said 3 feet was a lot, right?
So then maybe.
And I don't know if 20, I don't know, is that 20 feet? I have no idea. You said the canal bank needs to be 20 feet-ish, right? Is that what you said?
It's hard to tell from the photo. It looks like it's a little short of 20 feet.
So it's short of 20 feet, so we're going to take some to make it 20 feet, and then we're going to take some more for a parking bed, is that what you said?
A buffer behind the parking, yeah.
Buffer behind the parking. So now, let's just call that 15 feet. We're going to take 5 more to make it 20, and we're going to take 3, that's 8. And that's, for the southern property, doesn't seem tenable. So I don't know how to say 3 feet, because we already know it's not 20.
I think that what may not be clear is if the Noble family ever chooses to develop that property, I don't even know, maybe you guys never plan to sell that property, but if you do choose to sell that property, I think the point is that you're not going to have a structure that's going to go right up to the canal bank. You're not going to have a parking lot that goes right up to the canal bank. And I think what Mike, our city engineer, was communicating is that there would probably be some kind of a buffer there anyway. There'd be some landscaping between where either your parking lot or your building ended and the canal bank. And so you're already going to be having some of that property used for a landscape buffer. And there it would serve a dual purpose, though, and that it would be a landscape buffer between your parking lot and your building on that place, and a buffer between the trail and whatever it is you choose to develop there. Frankly, I think that people end up actually utilizing the trail. So if you put a commercial spot there, professional office buildings there, that you would actually probably have a pedestrian pathway to allow those people who are going to be working at that location access to the trail, because they may be going up over that Highway 168 bridge or from some of the other residences anyway, and want to just kind of ride their bike or walk right into your professional.
Can I ask a question? Is that in Bob's scenario about the trail and the, whatever you said, and the buffer, does the Noble family get to count the trail buffer as their own property buffer for some building, or do you get to count the same piece of property twice, or is it trail, buffer for their building, so it'd be extra? Does that make sense? Can you count the same buffer twice?
I think the intent of the cross-section was to show that normal landscaping buffer as part of the landscaping that would be adjacent to the trail.
So you can't count it for both?
Yes.
It could be both and, okay, I just wanted to make sure. Well, I know the language, but I offer my compromise, so I'd like to move on your motion or change your motion.
So I think I'm gonna put in, if Jose is okay with this, no more than 5 feet. Hopefully it'll be none, but certainly no more than 5.
And just limiting it to option 3 only right now. FID
Yeah,
option.
that's the option.
If I may, can I ask for some
Goes there.
clarification?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, if we were to say, that they would be required to provide the minimum FID bank and no more than 5 feet outside of that 20-foot requirement, is that what we're talking about, or a total of 5 feet? Yeah.
It's maximum dedication of land that they're gonna have to give to the city for this trail is 5 feet. I think that's what,
So we're gonna have to provide 20 feet for the FID, and, that can only be used for FID, or if they allow us to put the trail on top of the bank for that. Landscaping would be outside of that 10 feet. Or
And Mike,
that 20 feet, I'm sorry.
It's not the intention of the motion, I don't think.
and Mike, and whether we do a trail or not, FID is gonna require those 20 feet anyway, right?
Yes.
So as soon as it becomes city property or city, within the city sphere of, or not sphere, but city limits, FID will require those 20 feet.
They will require it in the process of,
Development.
us asking for them to give us their conditions when we do an entitlement, yes.
So those 20 feet are, it's not us, it's FID
It's FID.
requiring that. And we're saying 20 feet plus 5. Right, that's what you're saying?
That's what I'm suggesting, yes.
Is that what you're saying, Bob?
I think that's the only way that we get to where we want to go.
Okay, so I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Attorney, is everything clear enough? We got kind of convoluted.
I think it is. It's option 3 where the maximum dedication is gonna be 5 feet. The landscape area will be determined during the site plan review. I'm sure there's a way to design this with the potential for a 5-foot later dedication. I'm assuming they'll be able to work all this out at the site plan review stage. If I'm wrong, please tell me, but I think that will be doable, I imagine, but if someone objects, let me know.
But we need to make sure that we give assurances to the property owners that it's going to be nothing more than 5 feet. So when they choose to sell it, whoever they're selling it to knows that there is that potential instead of that ambiguity, which, we kind of had.
So just a question, Bob, on that motion. So if it's 6 feet, can they just do 4, or do they come back to us?
I don't know if I understand your question.
Like if it's more than 5, what if it's more than 5 that's gonna be required? Can they just move forward with 4, right? That's my, because if they come back to us again, we do this whole dance again.
Sure, if there's
We need some,
if there's a property owner that wants to, give more than 5.
no, I'm just saying the requirement goes past 5.
No, we're
And
not
so
gonna.
he's not willing to give more than 5 because we said not more than 5, but
Yeah.
with all the counting of everything, oh no, it's gonna be 6. So what do they do? What happens? Can they just move down to 4 is my question.
Oh, move to option 4,
Yeah,
not
move to
4
option
feet.
4. No,
Okay,
not 4
thank
feet, I'm
you.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, move to option 4. Yeah, can they just move to option 4 and continue, or do they come back here again is my, because
No,
I think they need some of that as well.
I think at that point, there's going to be a struggle with FID. It's not going to be a struggle with the property owners, because we've already said that it's going to be nothing more than 5 feet. So at that point, we have our conversation with FID. And we have at least annual, if not biannual meetings with them, and we can maybe bring this up.
Call for the.
But option 4, so we can get Vong on board. But I think as a city, we should always emphasize to our pedestrian, trail walkers that they should use the intersection. So we should promote it, not saying that, so.
And maybe I can clarify, I think by default, if you can't do the trail, because you don't have enough feet, you've asked for the 5 feet, not enough, by default, you're going to temperance and knees on the sidewalk. I think that's the only other option. And I think option 3 includes that. So you're going to explore these options, you're going to try to work it out with FID, you're going to get a maximum of 5 feet from the property owner. If that works, great. If it doesn't work, then you're back to temperance and knees. I think that's what the council is saying. I think that's how it works.
I don't think by default I don't think it's fair to the property owners to be by default.
I'm not hearing him saying by default.
Yeah, I don't hear that at all.
If we can't build the FID canal trail, there's no other choice but to go on temperance and knees.
Oh, there's a choice to keep arguing with FID.
Yeah, we're going to go after FID.
Well, but you've done all that. There's not gonna work.
I mean,
But
I
again-
just want to give, I don't want to give assurances to FID. I want to give assurances to the Noble family and to the Beals that we're not going to take anything more than 5 feet. Now, I have a feeling that the Beals are going to say, fine, you guys aren't taking any more than 5 feet, but this is such a nice amenity. We're also going to be working with you when we come up to landscaping against that canal, that we're going to, make it look even nicer and have, 10 feet.
But as a city policy, we should encourage pedestrian traffic cross up the intersection.
So you're saying option 4 then?
No,
If we can't do 3, you're saying 4, then if that's at the intersection.
yes, I guess. There's got to be a way where the city we have to say out loud for liability purposes that we have to keep that option on the table.
Can I call for the question? Can I call for the question for the
Yeah,
third time?
we were
And then if we
getting-
can't get it, then we can try it again, but we have a motion and a second on the floor. I don't know how to call for a question, maybe need a second, but we should end this.
So we have a motion and a second, and the motion is option 3 with a 5-foot maximum property take by the city of Clovis, and that we will work whenever possible to take none. Is that
Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
close to what we're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Hopefully there's no further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Nay. Okay, we have a 4-1.
Actually, I think,
three to-
I suggest a roll call vote just to
I'm sorry,
clarify.
It was
that.
3-2.
I would-
Okay, who
What
voted
did you
no?
vote?
I voted aye.
Just because
3-2.
members of the public
No.
might be listening, I think we should do a roll call vote,
Yeah.
just so there's no.
I'm sorry.
Just to make
Go ahead.
it very clear.
Councilmember Ashbeck?
No.
Councilmember Flores?
Yes, aye.
Councilmember Montoya?
No.
Councilmember Whalen?
Aye.
Mayor Bessinger?
Aye. Motion passes 3-2. Okay.
Not pretty, for sure.
Item 16, consider approval of resolution approving a proposed mitigated negative declaration and adopting a mitigation monitoring program for Community Improvement Project CIP 17-12 Villa Minnewawa Winding Project from Herndon to Alluvial Avenue. And Claudia Casares is the presenter. Claudia.
Good evening, Claudia Casares, Management Analyst with PDS. Tonight, as was mentioned, the project before you is for the approval of the CEQA documents for our Villa Minnewawa Avenue widening. It's a CIP project 1712. In general, the scope is to widen and rehabilitate approximately half a mile of the street from Herndon to Alluvial. The final configuration will be of 2 travel lanes and a bike lane in each direction, including curb, gutter, and sidewalks. As well, we know the vicinity is, as mentioned in the vicinity map, in the green highlighted area, like I said, from Herndon to Alluvial. And the project limits includes work alongside Villa, which transforms into Minnewawa Avenue. And the limits on the north side is Alluvial with some intersection improvements. For the CEQA work, we contracted with LSA & Associates. They did analysis of the project's impact on the environment. The finding for the project is that it will not have a significant effect on the environment with the implementation of the standard mitigation measures that most of our projects typically have. Mitigation measures are included as part of the staff report and will be incorporated into the project's scope of work. The initial study and mitigated negative declaration was circulated as required for public review for a period of 30 days prior to today's council meeting. And to be brief, my recommended action is to approve a resolution approving the mitigated negative declaration and adopting a mitigation monitoring program for CIP 1712, Villa Minnewawa Avenue widening project from Herndon to Alluvial. And I do have online both the project engineer, Fernando Copetti, as well as our LSA Associates consultant, Amy Fisher, to help with any questions you may have.
Thank you, Claudia. Any questions for staff? Bob?
I feel like I've run out of questions, but this one really puzzled me. So as I look at Minnewawa, on the northbound lane, it's 2 lanes. On the southbound lane, north of Alluvial, it's basically two lanes. And then once you cross Alluvial heading south, you have Wawona's orchard there, and it collapses into a single lane, yet you still have two northbound lanes on Minnewawa, and then all the way to, you get just about to Herndon, and then you have, I guess as it becomes Villa, you just have two lanes, one north and one south, until you finally get to Herndon, and then it expands, at least on the southbound portion of Villa, it presently expands back up to two lanes with some turning pockets, actually. Two lanes turning onto Herndon and one turning onto, and that would be eastbound Herndon, and then the other one lane westbound Herndon. So it, and then when I read the staff report, it was indicating that it was going to be a total of 2 travel lanes and a bike lane in each direction. So all the way from Alluvial to Herndon, we are now going to have 2 travel lanes and a bike lane.
Okay. And sidewalks.
And sidewalks. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Lynn?
Just a question, Claudia. The outreach to the businesses around there, I'm thinking of Wawona particularly, who's spent a fair amount of the last 3 or 4 years with tons of construction there, and the access to their property from their trucks coming off of Herndon. Did they comment on this, or did they weigh in on this document at all?
They did not comment on this document. We have been in contact with them over the years for this particular project, and they also received written notification about today's council meeting 10 days ago.
And they didn't, no other comment?
There were no other comments, no. All right. But we will work closely with them. Our project engineer is really good at working very closely with the property owners to ensure that access to their property is as they expect it to be.
Say the timing on the project again, if this is approved.
That's a good question. Mike, do you go with timing on the project?
I noticed in fiscal impact, it says the proposed project is included in the 1920 budget and is funded through federal surface transportation block grant funds. So can we expect it at least in the next fiscal year?
The engineering will start in this next fiscal year. I'm not sure if it'll be able to go out to bid by next summer, but the project engineer is working on it.
So I just think in terms of managing the timing, just let's not do it during packing season. That would be a really bad idea. Thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Bob, your light's on?
Sorry.
I will open this up to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item? I see none in chambers. Do we have anybody on the web?
There are none.
Mr. Clerk, did we have any public comments in writing? We did not. Okay, I will close public comments and come back to council for discussion and action.
I move that we approve the proposed mitigation neg deck and adopt the monitoring program for the CIP 1712.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. 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 Motion passes unanimously. Item 17 is consider approval of a resolution revising the master development fee schedule and providing a description of fees to be requested for county adoption, and Sean Smith is presenter. Sean.
Sorry, let me turn my microphone on first. Good evening, Council. I'm here to present to you an update for the development impact fee for your consideration and approval. This year, staff is recommending to implement year 2 of the Parks and Rec 3-year implementation plan and an adjustment based on the construction cost index, also known as CCI. The overall impact of these adjustments increase the impact fees for residential projects by 4 to 5%. That depends on location and on density. They also increase the impact fees for non-residential projects by roughly 3%, depending on location and land use like retail, office, or industrial. You might recall that we updated the municipal code in August 2018 to direct staff to return to council annually with a fee update using one of two means. And a point I'd like to make is that this happens to be the first time the staff has come back with a fee revision since that code was updated. So one of the means to update the fees is a comprehensive evaluation of the fee program. The other is to utilize a CCI adjustment. This year, staff is proposing to implement the CCI update. The CCI, as reported by the Engineering News Record, ENR, has been the city's longtime benchmark, and we use that for evaluating the implementation of the rate adjustments by comparing, you know, our comprehensive evaluation. We see like it doesn't measure up to the CCI. Staff looked for other indices at the request of the BIA by using internet searches and by contacting nearby agencies, and we were able to confirm that both Fresno and Madera use the CCI as reported by ENR. The graphic that you see now was presented last year, and I just want to show it to you again so you have a visual idea of what I'm going to discuss next. Some of the stakeholders have suggested to delay any adjustments in order to wait to see what effects COVID-19 will have on the market and on construction costs. It's important to note that CCI captures cost changes that have occurred in the past. In this case, it covers the time between December 18 and December 19. So the proposed CCI adjustment will catch the rates up to where they should be. 6 months from now in December, we'll again look to see what the CCI is, and we'll see what effect 2019 to 2020 has, and that'll give us an idea what COVID has done. And then if there's adjustments that need to be made at that point, we can come back again, and you know, maybe that's a decrease because COVID has had a, you know, an effect to turn the market down. Now, a side effect of deferring market adjustments for too long is there's a potential for a large catch-up down the road. Okay, and that's, you know, graphically what you're seeing there. That now this slide shows the specific changes regarding the Parks and Rec fee and the CCI adjustment. As a reminder, the Parks and Rec fee was brought before Council in July of 2019 with a proposed 33% increase from $34.31 per unit to $45.50 per unit. This increase was largely based on land costs and construction cost increases, and it was proposed and later approved to provide a 3-year implementation plan in which the rate is adjusted by 10% plus CCI each year until it reaches the full rate by year 3. So then just as a reminder, this would be year 2, which I've underlined there for you.
I'm sorry, Sean, can you go back to that last one?
Sure.
Do they only have CCI for San Francisco and Los Angeles? They don't have a statewide CCI?
That's correct. Those are the 2 closest cities that are in ENR.
Okay. Was there a difference between them? Like one was 2 and one was, I don't know, 4?
There is. I don't have that in front of me, but I do remember that there was a difference.
Significant difference or not?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Sorry. Any other questions before I move on? So going forward, I'm requesting your consideration to approve the revisions to the fees tonight. And should you approve them, they'll take effect in 60 days on August 17th. That's the end of my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions for Sean? Lynn?
I have a question, Sean, in the BIA letter. Can you, I just lost it, but can you, they were asking for what? Help me, sorry, I lost it earlier. But I mean, they had an alternative, it was right here. Accept the fees revisited prior to 1 year, 6 months. Can you talk about that conversation and what that was about?
Yeah, their letter that they provided, and I'm looking at it, they would like to defer the CCI adjustment. They would like to move ahead with the parks adjustment, but just wait and see what effect COVID might have. And come back later. Now, just so you know, staff is also working on a comprehensive update to the fees right now. So we're in the middle of that. I'm hoping to come back, later with what those results might be and let you know. But I mean, I would first be talking to BIA before I come back with a proposal. But that's their suggestion. Just that let's wait. Let's see what effects COVID has had on the market and on the construction costs. But just move ahead with the parks adjustment that was already agreed to, that they were in support of, and that would be considerably less than the 4 to 5% on the housing, and it would be less for the non-residential sector as well.
So the only fee we're looking at now is the parks fee?
That's their suggestion, yes.
But that's not what you're bringing to the council.
Correct. Mine is that to implement this year 2 of the parks adjustment and to implement the CCI.
But not all the other development fees that you're still reviewing. This is just about the parks fee. Oh, you're saying the CCI to all other fees.
Correct, the CCI to all the fees.
And then you're going to come back later with the adjustment to the fees, in addition to the CCI, potentially, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Bob? Yeah, okay, so I think I'm confused, with, maybe in the same way that Lynn is. I thought that we are in the middle of a comprehensive analysis of our fees. And that comprehensive analysis is going to determine how much we should be charging for development fees. Is that right?
Maybe I should back up a little bit. So what the proposal that I have for you tonight is to, we've already implemented the water supply fee update. Okay, that was just recently within the last 6 months or so. And I'm proposing to move ahead with year 2 of the parks adjustment, and then all the other fees, minus the water supply fee, to implement a CCI adjustment of 2.8%. Now, staff is in the middle of doing a comprehensive adjustment, looking to the future to then be able to see what effects COVID has had on the market. Because when we do that, we'll take a look at what the unit costs are for land, for paving, and all of that. But for tonight, it's not including that full comprehensive evaluation of the fees.
When do you expect to be done with your full comprehension of the development fees?
I would like to come back to BIA and then bring something to you by the end of the year. That's really hopeful.
Okay. So you're asking for the CCI today, and then you'll do the comprehensive analysis of the development fees, and then be able to make a comparison. All right, I'm less confused, thank you.
Linda, do you have anything more? Bob? I thought when you presented the fees in general, that the CCI was embedded in that, wasn't it? So why is it a question from the BIA now to question what we already placed? But am I mistaken in that? Because I remember having that question where, do we use the CCI? Why is the CCI used? And it was explained when we approved the fees that was the index we're going to use. Am I right in that, or no? Or do we pick and choose each time we readjust on? If it's not the CCI, it's this other index. Sometimes it's that index.
We've consistently used the CCI.
Yeah.
BIA did question whether that was appropriate. I mean, like Waylon was correct in saying that the closest two cities are San Francisco and LA.
Mm-hmm.
And one of their points was, well, maybe that's not appropriate for the Clovis area. And they asked us to look at other available indices out there. But no, we have not in the past selected, it's just been the CCI is reported by engineering, ENR engineering support.
And in approval in the 60 days it becomes effective, does that put us pretty much right on track on when, if we were going to implement these changes, does that put you right on track pretty much? You come in now and then in 60 days it being effective? Is that our typical timeline?
60 days is typical, yes, if that's the question.
But when it's
I'm sorry.
assessed, though, you know, when we look at it, and so is it, so 60 days will put us, June, July, August? So is it almost August is the time when we would assess it each year?
Ideally, I would have them updated July 1st, so they just, they coincide with the fiscal year. So this would actually be a little delayed.
Okay.
Can you ask your question again? Didn't BIA already agree to did they already agree to the 2.8% annual CCI adjustment? Or we just, or is it, I forgot, what was the answer that you gave to Vaughn?
Well, my question was, they were informed, as we were, that the CCI was what we would always use. So I was just asking, wasn't that information out there? So why are they questioning it now?
So what was the answer to that? What was the answer to that?
I didn't answer that.
I said, wait, I want to know that question.
Sorry, I missed that one. I answered a later question. When we came back in 2018, we put two options in the code that staff would come back annually, either with a full comprehensive fee update, or we'd come back with a recommendation to update by CCI. But in both cases, we'd always come back to council, we'd present it to you, and you'd have the chance to decide whether you want to approve that or not. So in the code, it says that we are going to use CCI. It didn't provide another option for staff to choose. It would be the CCI as measured by ENR, and it would be for the preceding 12 months of December.
So I want to say what you said again. Did you say the code says that every year we can either use CCI or do a comprehensive review of all fees? Is that what it says?
That's correct.
So why are we doing both? Just checking. Because now you said you're doing this and you're going to come back with a comprehensive review. So why are we doing both?
I'm starting the comprehensive one for the next fee update. It takes a lot of time.
So we were not going to implement those fees until mid-2021 or later in 2021.
Correct.
I see.
I'm sorry for causing any confusion with that.
And one of the reasons is because we're not sure what effect the COVID issue has had on building and cost of building and fees and things like that.
Right.
Okay. Lynn, you're still, any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none in chambers, do we have anyone on the web?
There are none.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, do we have any written comments?
You just have one on the last page of my handout to you, which is Mike Pradini of the BIA reiterating his opposition to the proposed CCI.
Okay, thank you. We will come back to council. I'll close public comments and come back to council for consideration.
I don't know why we're doing both. I don't know why we're doing a comprehensive analysis and then we have the CCI. I thought when we went through the CCI in the past, it was to provide some predictability to the building industry so they would know, what to expect as far as increases in costs. Maybe we're doing both so that we can see whether CCI makes sense for us, but that's because the CCI is in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and maybe that's not reflective of what we have here. I don't know, why are we doing both?
So my understanding of the reason is we are doing this year the CCI. This would be the first year that we implemented that. Keeping in mind that CCI is what the cost had increased last December. So we knew that cost, it takes a while to get all this together. So those costs already went up. They're already there. They're already higher than what we're charging. But because of the time to get this involved, and then because of COVID, the BIA, this would have been the first year we were going to do this new system, but COVID hit and it kind of changed things. There's been some back and forth. We've been trying to work with the BIA on this issue, which delays it even further, so the fees really won't be collected till August instead of starting July 1. The BIA is insisting that the COVID has the potential to change the entire market. So if that's true, the only way we would see that would be with a comprehensive analysis. But if we do that comprehensive analysis, it's going to take time. We probably wouldn't have that data by the end of the year. It would be what we came back with next year, next calendar year.
Meanwhile, we're going to be out costs.
Correct.
Okay.
The key thing to keep in mind, these fees are not just a nominal fee. They are a proportional share of a hard cost. And anytime we charge less than what that cost is, if you look at that graph, anytime the red line's below the blue line, we are not collecting enough money. And when we don't collect enough money, we wind up without money to build a park, without enough money to build a fire station, without enough money to pay for the sewers, and we have to find the money elsewhere, either through, hopefully, grants, or in the case of utilities, borrowing from users. So this was the first year of the CCI planned implementation. Again, it's been delayed through some negotiations, but these costs are already up there. And if COVID takes them down, that would show up in the CCI that we get next December. That's just the construction cost index. If land costs have plummeted or something like that because of COVID, that wouldn't show up unless we did a comprehensive analysis. So we're starting that analysis, but if we wait until that analysis is done, then we're 2 years behind and losing money in the meantime. So this year's update is the CCI update plus the parks fee. The comprehensive analysis would tell us whether we need to change things completely, or, hey, COVID didn't really have that big of a long-term impact and we go with the CCI, but we won't know that till the end of the year, and then we would be implementing that cost next year. That's my understanding. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong.
It seems like COVID will make costs higher. There will be fewer units over which to allocate costs.
And the opportunity to charge the difference to the developer won't be there anymore. We'll have to find that adjustment somewhere else.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And the costs, not necessarily. Where COVID might have the biggest impact is if the bottom falls completely out of the market, you see land prices drop, and some of this money is to reimburse for land. And when construction comes to a complete stop, you see the price of construction go down just because, right. However, if you look at this graph, you can see that the last time the market dropped, we made an adjustment to our fees to support the industry that was a much greater deduction than the actual cost went down. The cost flattened. There was actually, in the last financial crisis, there was only, I think, 1 year that the CCI went down, and it was from 8.9 to 9.10, and you can see it was not a significant decrease, but our fee increases went way down, and to a certain extent, we're still struggling to make up for those losses.
We'll just have a hard time if we do this analysis come December, January, and those fees have gone up, this has gone up, and COVID-19, we still have 30% unemployment in California, or, you know what I mean? So I don't think we're going to be in a better place to raise fees in 6 months, and surely we are today. I'm not saying we want to do it today, but it's not going to get any easier going forward.
No, it's not going to. It's never easy to raise fees, but if we lower them when the costs are still going up, we run out of money.
I heard that. Okay.
And I was just going to add, if you don't mind, in negotiating with the industry on what the fees should be, and deciding that a CCI would be easier to absorb, rather than a 30 or 35% increase in a year or two. We previously agreed that a little bit each year is much more conducive than us hitting them with a 30 or 40% increase.
I'm ready to make a motion to approve the revision of the master development fee schedule and providing description of fees to be requested for county adoption.
We have a motion and a second. Lynn, your light's still on. Did you want to say
Did we do
anything?
public comment or anything?
I thought we did. I got a little lost there.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item is number 18, which at the request of the clerk has to be, is going to be taken off the agenda and be continued to the July 20th, 2020 meeting. Now we come to administrative items.
Mayor, members of council, just to avoid renoticing, I think it's going to be a motion to continue that item.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to continue item 18 to the July 2020 meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Administrative item.
Mayor,
Sorry, go
on
ahead.
that one. Does it affect much since July 1st is the intended start date and we're going to hear July 20th? Does it matter?
So that we did look at that. There are not any projects in the queue that are going to be impacted by this in the queue so far.
Okay, administrative items. Administrative items are matters on the regular city council agenda other than public hearings. Item 19 is consider approval of the third amendment to the city manager employment agreement. David will be our presenter. David.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, this is a request by the city manager for a 2-year contract extension, and that's what it is. Pretty simple.
Can you do every report? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Gotta go. Good job.
Any questions for staff? I'll open this to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none in chambers, we have anyone on the web?
No.
And Mr. Corcoran, we had no public comments in writing?
We do not.
I'll move for
Okay.
approval.
We have a motion? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Oh, did I say it was through 2032? Did I say that? It wasn't 2022. 2032 seems perfect.
Now we come to council items. Item 20, workshop for the City of Clovis Council to conduct a workshop to discuss the impact on ongoing city operations during the COVID-19 state of emergency as declared by the federal government, State of California, County of Fresno, and City of Clovis, and to explore actions the city may take in response to the crisis. Staff is Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We have been working with Fresno County trying to get better data on Clovis. Now, recognizing the limitations of that data. One is that we do not live in a bubble. So there are people that live in Fresno and shop in Clovis, and people that live in Clovis and shop in Fresno. But it is at least some data. It's the best available data. So Matthew Middleton is one of the epidemiologists at Fresno County Department of Public Health, and he has been very helpful getting to us some of their data. They have a number of systems they're drawing it from. This first graph that he has presented shows the number of new cases reported by week for Clovis residents. Now, Clovis residents being someone with a Clovis address. They don't have it broken down to whether they're inside the city limit or without. And this is just data. It's something to watch. It's something to pay attention to. So these are the number of new cases each week. You can see there was a very early spike in April. And then starting in May, the numbers went up, but that also corresponds with increased testing. So with increased testing, there's going to be increased cases. So that's just one marker. The next slide, this one actually is I think a little more helpful. This shows a cumulative count, with the blue being the number of cumulative cases in Clovis on those dates that have occurred on those dates. And the red is how many have been hospitalized. And where that's helpful is with increased testing, you are going to have, the potential for a big jump in cases, in diagnosed cases. The hospitalizations, though, if someone was going to wind up in the hospital with COVID, they were going to wind up there before the testing ramped up. So this is useful, and again, this is a cumulative, so that you can see that, for instance, in the last week, there were 4 new cases, no new hospitalizations, because the red number stayed the same. The blue number went up by 4. So you can see that since COVID started, there have been 13 hospitalizations of Clovis residents, and that's helpful to see just how widespread it is. Next slide. This shows the number of diagnosed cases. Clovis is kind of that gold line that's in the middle, and Fresno is not on here. Not that anybody's discriminating against Fresno, but much larger city, but much higher number of cases. I think they've had 1,250 cases. So they've been deleted from these graphs on comparison with cities, because if we included them, the scale of the graph would be such that everybody else would be bunched down at the bottom. So Fresno is not on this graph, but Clovis is doing well, considering we're the second largest city in the county. So that's one comparison. Here's a different way of looking at that data. You can see the top line, Fresno is included on here. This is right off the county's website. The gray are the closed cases, those that have recovered. The yellow are the ones that are under investigation. Now, part of the problem, and the county admits this, is that especially if somebody got COVID, the 3rd week of March, they may not have been able to close out that case because, they may be healthy and back at work, and it's just the records in the system wasn't in place. But this gives you an idea of the total cases that have been diagnosed for each address, and then the number that have recovered, and you can see Clovis compares favorably on this graph as well. I just wanted to show you that information. It's the next slide actually has a little bit bigger breakdown. Again, Fresno is not included on this just to keep the graph at a usable scale. This shows the means of how they got the disease, whether it was travel related, person to person, community acquired, or then just the red is the under investigation, meaning they haven't been able to determine it. But this is useful data. We're getting this. The county's providing it to us on a weekly basis. Unfortunately, I think they usually get it to us on Tuesday, so I'm dealing with week-old data here. But it is useful for us just to watch and see what happens and see if we start to see any significant changes. That's all I had for the workshop. We don't have any recommended emergency orders or anything. We are continuing to, Andy is working with our businesses to try to keep them up to speed on the state guidance and then the county implementation of that guidance for business reopening, and we're seeing more and more businesses reopen. And Andy is kind of the go-between and the interpreter for that, because it's never simple or direct, and Andy and his staff have done a great job with getting the information, evaluating it, and then getting the information back out to our businesses in a manner that's usable to them and actionable, and giving them heads up. It's like, hey, look, the state's released this guidance that this might be able to open next Friday, start doing these things, so that when the county gives you the green light, you've got that in place. So that's what we're doing. I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions for Luke? Bob?
Does the county have numbers for the amount of deaths in Clovis?
Yeah, the last, and they didn't provide it in this week. The last one, when I talked to them on the phone, there had been 1 death in Clovis, and that was, I think, just a couple weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
Luke, given the amount of sort of senior facilities that we had, what's the sort of feedback from them? It seems like given the amount we have, it's very low, so they must have been doing an excellent job in caring for the most vulnerable population.
I believe they have been doing a great job. Our fire department, Chief Panaski and Chad Fitzgerald, reached out to all of them very early on. Okay. We've actually, there were, at one facility, there were staff that tested positive and kind of gave everybody the heebie-jeebies, but they took the appropriate action very quickly, and it never broke out within that facility. I know that when that happened, our fire department, it was early on when PPE was hard to come by and our fire department said, here's what you need, here's some training on how to use it, make sure this doesn't spread, and it was helpful. So we have been very, very fortunate that there hasn't been the outbreaks in those senior care facilities here in Clovis.
And once again, thank you, Andy, for just how quickly you get the information out into the business community, and Chad for putting it on social media so our community knows how to access it and gets to know who to contact with. So thank you for that.
Lynn?
I think the number in our community is actually not a relevant piece of data, to your point, because we don't live in a bubble. And I just think we need to acknowledge that our performance around these metrics is as much about our community's overall health. We had a really low unemployment rate. We had lots of people with jobs, lots of people with health insurance. People do not live in poverty. People do not ride mass transit. People do not work in a meat packing plant. I just think we have to be super careful not to go, good for us. We only have one person that's died for that family. That was really miserable. I just think we have to be super careful. The data is not, it's not in my mind. I don't want to celebrate. I mean, I'm glad that we don't have very many cases, but I think we've got to look at the whole picture, and that's why Clovis's numbers are lower than anywhere else. Mendota, Huron, Selma, they all have, congregate workplaces. And I think we have to be really careful. I've gotten a fair amount, I'm sure you have not, but I have gotten a fair amount of criticism about kind of Clovis is the Wild West and we didn't want to follow the rules. And so that's what I would hear. I think that's what I would hear. But so I think we just have to be careful how we manage that. We've done a really good job, but it's not for really anything we've done around COVID-19. It's the kind of the history of our community. I think we just need to be kind of careful how we talk about that.
Any other questions for staff? I'll open this up to the public. Any member of the public wish to address the council on this item? I see none in chambers. Do we have anyone online?
None.
And Mr. Clerk, did we have any comments in writing?
No.
Okay. We will go to the next item, which is city manager comments. Luke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had quite a bit of discussion earlier about Fresno Irrigation District and canals and trails. It's important to note that today is Fresno Irrigation District's 100th birthday. We had planned on having a resolution with some of their board members here to recognize that, and I had talked to their general manager months ago about that. With the COVID situation and with meetings being done remotely, we've decided to put that off, but they put out a nice video, and it is nice to see a partner like that celebrate 100 successful years. That's it for me.
Thank you. Council comments. Bob?
I don't think I have to report out my Zoom public safety meeting because I didn't go anywhere, but just in case, we had our public safety meeting, came up with I think a really balanced resolution, just calling out the League of California Cities' response to what happened in Minneapolis. It was a good conversation. Jose knows this. I think a lot of the people on our public safety committee are former law enforcement, and they're generally really quick to promote law enforcement and not say anything negative about law enforcement. But I think it was for the first time there was some shock in the law enforcement community, retired and otherwise. And so the statement I thought was pretty balanced. Also, we were going to be attacking the $0 bail, but that's not an issue for us as much as it was anymore since, come June 20th, it won't be. So that is my report from my Zoom meeting.
Lynn?
So I attended FCTA, so just really, we approved the budget. That was about all, so I just wanted to say that out loud. Do we want to talk about Minneapolis? And do we want to talk about, I mean, I don't know about the city didn't say a peep about the events in Minneapolis. I don't think. You didn't issue a statement. Chief didn't say anything out loud. I didn't see a single thing. The chief did. But I mean, I don't,
And
you know,
you
is
put out
that,
a statement also.
You put out a statement on,
Yeah.
on social media.
on their website, I saw that. But I mean, I guess, like, do we wanna do anything to help support Clovis Unified, who's just getting kind of excoriated on, I mean, I don't know, I guess I didn't see any of it, so wherever the circles were, I didn't see any of the things we did, except somebody sent the Clovis PD page to me. I saw it somewhere. I don't think it was from you, but I saw it.
I think
you
so
sent that.
we've done a couple,
So I mean, are we satisfied that we've done enough to address those issues in our community, and we're good with that?
I don't know if you can ever do enough,
I
but,
totally
but the chief, put out a statement on, social media, within a couple of days, a few days of the event, speaking to it, and then that was also posted on our webpage. And then they have since put out the Where We Stand webpage, which, rather than a statement on what happened in Minneapolis, it's what we are doing to prevent that from happening here, talking about our training and
Yeah, that's the only thing I've seen, though.
Okay,
So
yeah.
maybe that's just my fault. I didn't see anything in any other.
There was, again, the chief, I think it was that Thursday or Friday, the chief, that had happened that week, the chief put out a statement on social media, and then he's had several interviews.
Yeah, and Lieutenant Monroe did a really
Yeah.
That was,
job.
yeah, I was gonna say that. He did fabulous.
Gosh, it
Yeah.
made me cry watching him cry. All right, so the only thing I'd seen was so I apologize.
Yeah, and then,
I did not see anything else.
and then also, I think both of you made a statement the first council meeting after that, happened.
I was here, but I don't remember that. I mean, I was listening, and I don't remember that. Did you?
Yeah, coming right out of the gate, I think we hit it.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, all right.
Bob? Yeah, just wanted to report out our Zoom meeting as well. I want to thank Andy for reading all and helping sort of get a lot of information and being a sounding board from a staff perspective, having a lot of the knowledge and background. We went ahead and voted on 3 ballot measures. So the ones for schools and community first, sort of the Prop 13 one, that was in support. Okay, and so the committee, not me, okay, the committee. So voted in support. I think all of these still have to go to the general session, have to obtain, I forgot.
Was it in the form of a resolution, or was it just, you know, because if it wasn't in the form of a resolution, it's just gonna go to the board, and the board's gonna do what they're gonna do.
They mentioned it still has to go back to the board. That
Okay.
ours is just a recommendation, the
All right.
entire, has to get like a 2/3, right? I don't know. And so there's still another step, even though it's only a recommendation from our committee moving forward. With regards to rent control, it ended up with a no position, because the motion just died. And then there was a Family Home Protection and Fairness and Property Tax Act, that got support of the committee as well. We got to look at only one legislation, SB 1085, which is the density bonus, and that fell with a no if amended. And so then, yeah, unless amended. Yeah, unless amended. And then we have 3 more, which we'll look at at another special meeting, because we didn't finish, because we got into the discussion with Minneapolis, what happened there. So there's 3 more. It's SB 1120 with subdivisions and tentative tract maps, SB 1385 streamlining housing and commercial zones, AB 2580 conversion of hotels and motels and streamlining those. And so we'll vote on those on Wednesday. So just want to report that. Hotels and motels and streamlining. Andy, do you know more about that one? There's only a little blurb, and I thought I brought it, but I didn't bring it.
Yeah, that proposed legislation would remove CEQA requirements on the conversion of a hotel to be a homeless or some type of assisted living situation.
And that's all. Thank you. Jose?
I guess I should have also reported out our North Kings GSA meeting. Very few items on the agenda for our May 28th meeting. It was mostly budgets, very, not doing much right now because, most of the heavy lifting was done, just getting the things done last year, so it was fairly quick meeting. Within an hour, we're in and out, so nothing much to report from that meeting.
Thank you. During this period, I've been getting a lot of emails from people about things related to police reform and, you know, their position. Some are lumping Clovis in with the rest of the world. And whenever I get those emails, I always ask those folks to please sign up for a ride-along with a police officer in their community so they can see the men and women that actually do the work here and see what they see. And they may walk away with the same opinion they have, but at least it'll be an educated and informed opinion, not based upon something that happened to somebody 30 years ago. And I think the report that the department put out was really well done and very informative. And I think that if you have somebody who is righteously concerned and is willing to be objective, they'll look at it and they may come up with areas where they can go, yeah, I think maybe you should do this. And we certainly have to be open to changing if things need to change. I mean, both Jose and I have been doing this for a very long time, and it doesn't mean that we have to continue to do things the way we've done them. So hopefully, if anything good could come out of this mess, maybe our way of doing business can be improved. I don't know. But hopefully, we'll have a lot more riders, and I think, you know, and then maybe the next time we open up our community forum where we're having people, Citizens Academy, we'll get a lot more folks who will want to be involved in resolving the problem and not just talking about it. Welcome back, Lynn. We're happy to see you. You were very on your game tonight. We appreciate that. And I think that's it. Thank you for coming, folks. July 6th?